Chapter 554. Soon, Miss Tang disappeared with the Tang clan's powerhouses. Wu Wen and Yu Wuchen heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts when they saw this scene. Because if the young miss of the Tang family didn't leave, then there would only be one outcome, and that would be mutual destruction. Whether it was Wu Yuan or the sword sect, they did not want to be destroyed together. In the dark, Yi Xian looked in the direction Miss Tang left and said softly, "That woman is really sinister." The words that this woman had said before she left were actually meant to sow discord. To sow discord between him and Wu Yuan, as well as the sword sect. Needless to say, the sword sect and Wu Yuan would definitely be on guard against him now. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian turned around and disappeared quietly. Plotting against him? Not a chance. In the sky above the sword sect, Yu Wuchen looked at Wu Wan and said softly, "Brother Wu Wan, what my sword sect did to Wu Yuan?" Wu Wan shook his head. "Let's not talk about the past. Now that you are in charge of the sword sect, I hope that both sides can put down all grudges and face everything together." He knew very well that Wu Yuan and sword sect did not have their strongest trump card. If both sides did not join forces, Shinwu City would definitely change hands. Yu Wuchen nodded. "Brother Wu Wan, put it down. From today onwards, my sword sect and Wu Yuan will live and die together." Live and die together. Whether it was Wu Wen or Yu Wuchen, both knew very well that the sword sect and Wu Yuan were interdependent. Whoever died, the other side would not have a good ending. And if both sides joined forces, then any force that wanted to destroy them would have to pay a terrible price. At this moment Yu Wuchen suddenly said softly, "What Miss Tang said before she left. Sowing discord." Wu Wen said solemnly, "That woman hoped that we would target Yi Xian, or rather, she did not want Yi Xian to stand on our side." Yi Xian. Yu Wuchen's expression was rather complicated. In fact, if he could turn back time, he would have chosen to directly suppress Mu Fengchen and his grandson. However, he had his concerns at that time. First, if he tried to suppress Mu Fengchen and his grandson, it might lead to an internal strife in the sword sect. After all, Mu Fengchen and his grandson had been running the sword sect for many years. They had absolute authority in the sect. Moreover, at that time, he somewhat agreed with what Mu Fengchen and his grandson had done. If Yi Xian were to stay in the sword sect, it would not be a good thing for the sword sect. However, he did not expect that Mu Fengchen and his granddaughter would try to kill Yi Xian after chasing him away, and would even be stupid enough to snatch the treasure. This was something he hadn't expected. When he found out, everything was set in stone. Wu Wen suddenly said, "We cannot have any dealings with this Yi Xian." Yu Wuchen looked at Wu Wan. "Brother Wu Wan, isn't this exactly what the Tang family's eldest daughter wants?" Wu Wan shook his head. "There's no other way. Yi Xian is a whirlpool. If he is in the divine martial city, he will bring more troubles. Because with him around, those people will definitely target our Wu Yuan and the sword sect at all costs. But without him, if they want to target us again, they will have to first ask if it's worth it." Yu Wuchen said solemnly, "His sister and friends are in Wu Yuan, those people." Speaking up to this point, his heart suddenly jolted. Mentality. He realized that after he took charge of the sword sect, his mentality had changed. He admired Yi Xian a lot. This was something he had never concealed. But after he took charge of the sword sect, he realized that between Yi Xian and the sword sect, he would subconsciously choose the sword sect. For the sake of the sword sect. He would even have some thoughts that he once disdained. For example, asking Yi Xian, his friends, and his sister to leave the divine martial city. Although this thought was fleeting, it still appeared. Yu Wuchen looked in the direction of the sword sect's sword tomb with a complicated gaze. In the past, he was the most talented person in the sword sect and also the strongest. But the previous sword sect master, who was also his master, had passed the sect master position to Mu Fengchen. He couldn't figure out why this was happening. He even had some resentment in the past. But now he finally understood. His master not passing the position to him was actually for his own good. If he took charge of the sword sect, he might not be able to break through to Transcendent Sword Saint in his lifetime. As a sect master, no matter what he did, he had to be overcautious. And this kind of mentality would definitely affect the sword Dao. At this time Wu Wen suddenly said, "I'll go talk to him." Yu Wuchen retracted his thoughts and looked at Wu Wen. "Will he cooperate with you?" Wu Wen said softly, "Yes. Because he values his friends and sister very much, For them, he will definitely cooperate. Also, Brother Yu, from now on, whether it is your sword sect or my Wu Yuan, we need to maintain 120% vigilance to prevent that woman's sudden attack. Yu Wuchen nodded. Understood. I have already ordered all the sword sect disciples outside to rush back. There were a few swordsmen in the sword sect who were actually outside to gain experience, and among these people, there was no lack of Dao realm experts. However, some of the swordsmen had left the sect for a very long time, some even more than 100 years, and it was unknown whether these people were still alive or dead. But as long as they were not dead, these swordsmen would definitely rush back. Soon, Wu Wen left with Wu Yuan and the other experts, and the sword sect returned to peace. Of course, the hearts of the swordsmen were not at peace. The current sword sect was in a mess. This time, the sword sect could be said to have suffered heavy losses. Not only were there only 6 Dao realm experts left, but the sword sect had also lost half of its savings. It could be said that the sword sect did not dare to activate the sword formation without restraint anymore. This was because every single sword formation consumed a lot of energy. At this moment, Yu Wuchen suddenly said, "Bury those who sacrifice themselves. Apart from that, no one is allowed to leave Shenwu City from now on." As he spoke, he looked at Mu Fengchen's corpse with a complicated gaze. "Bury him well as well." With that, he turned around and walked towards the sword tomb. As the Tang clan's experts retreated, the entire Shenwu City gradually calmed down. However, the entire Shenwu City had become a little empty. The battle between the sword sect and Wu Yuan had caused a group of people to leave, and the invasion of the Tang clan's experts had caused the few remaining people in Shenwu City to leave. No one dared to stay in Shenwu City. They were all afraid of being implicated. Outside Shenwu City, in a mountain range, the Tang clan's Missy sat cross-legged on the ground. Not far from her stood a group of knights, and beside her was the armored man. After a long time, the Tang clan's Missy opened her eyes. She stood up and looked at Shenwu City with a cold gaze. Yuelao said in a deep voice, "Missy, what should we do now?" "What should we do?" The Tang clan's Missy narrowed her eyes. "What do you think we should do now?" Yuelao shook his head. "Now that Wu Yuan and Sword Sect have joined forces, if the clan does not send experts over, I'm afraid more than 90% of us will die even if we take over Shenwu City." The Tang clan's Missy shook her head. "The clan will not send experts over." Yuelao frowned slightly. "Why?" The Tang clan's Missy said indifferently. "Because someone in the clan has an opinion. The people we have are more than enough to seize that treasure." Yuelao asked, "Give up Shenwu City?" The Tang clan's Missy didn't say anything. Yuelao said again, "Missy, that treasure is really in the hands of that Yi Xian?" The Tang clan's Missy said softly, "Most likely. We have been fooled by this person since the beginning. Not only us, but the sword sect has also been fooled by him. This person is not only powerful, but his intelligence is also not low." Yuelao nodded. "This person is not like a swordsman. And now, he is hiding in the dark. We can't do anything to him. The only way is to attack Wu Yuan, but Wu Yuan has joined forces with the sword sect." Speaking up to here, his face darkened. Now, he realized that they really could not do anything to this Yi Xian. The Tang clan's Missy also fell silent. The current her was extremely angry. Originally, she could take down the sword sect and then deal with Yi Xian. By then, not only could she deal with Yi Xian, she could also take down Wu Yuan. Unfortunately, Wu Yuan suddenly helped the sword sect and ruined all her plans. Especially that Yi Xian. He was extremely cunning. Once he saw that the situation was not good, he immediately fled. After a while, the Tang clan's Missy suddenly said, "Go contact the star regions that attacked Never-Ending Star Region." Yuelao hesitated, then said, "I'm afraid they don't have the guts to come again." Lady Tang said indifferently, "I don't believe that they don't want revenge." Yuelao nodded slightly. "Old man, go and try." With that, he turned and left. Lady Tang looked at Yilan beside her. "Help me contact some people." After a while, Yilan also turned and left. Lady Tang looked in the direction of Divine Martial City. "Then I'll play with you." Yi Xian. Speaking up to here, her eyes gradually turned cold. Wu Yuan. In the martial arts hall, Yi Xian stood quietly. Not far in front of him were Wu Wan and He Liantian. Wu Wan glanced at Yi Xian. "Little friend Yi, you should know why the old man sent you here, right?" Yi Xian smiled. Senior Wu Wen wants me to leave? Wu Wen nodded. You must leave. My Wu Yuan cannot withstand the Tang clan and countless other forces' attacks. Yi Xian said in a low voice. If I leave, they will still come to Wu Yuan to find me. Wu Wen looked at Yi Xian. You should know what to do. Yi Xian smiled. Of course he knew what to do. He couldn't hide. He had to keep showing himself to attract the Tang clan's attention, then lead them somewhere else. As long as he showed himself, the Tang clan would definitely look for him, and they wouldn't pay a huge price to target Wu Yuan and the sword sect. To put it bluntly, he had to go out and attract their attention. Wu Wen said in a low voice, I'm sorry, we have no other choice. Yi Xian smiled. Take good care of my sister and my friends. I don't want Wu Yuan to hand them over for self-protection. If that's the case, then I can take them and leave now. He still had the prison pagoda. Naturally, he could take them and leave, but that would be very dangerous, very dangerous. If something happened to him, everyone would die. Wu Yuan looked straight at Yi Xian. Don't worry, my Wu Yuan will never betray them for self-protection. Yi Xian nodded. I will remember Senior's words. If Senior goes back on his words, I will kill everyone in Wu Yuan at all costs. If Senior keeps his words, I will stand on Wu Yuan's side at all costs, and attract everyone's hatred at all costs. After saying that, he turned and left. When he reached the door, he suddenly stopped and said, Tell my sister, her brother won't let anyone harm a single hair on her. If anyone does, then I, Yi Xian, will die. After saying that, he walked out. P.S. Because there are 4 readers who didn't come to me for their books, I have decided to draw a new one. Because there are only 6 books, I will only pick the handsome ones. Let me see how many readers can be mentioned in the same breath as me in terms of appearance. Those handsome readers who only read books and vote, you can't keep a low profile anymore. Come out. Chapter 555. Watching Yi Xian leave, Wu Wen remained silent for a long time. Beside Wu Wen, He Liantian said softly, What will this guy do? Wu Wen shook his head. No matter what he does, it has nothing to do with us. At this moment, Qin Shan suddenly rushed in. Yi Ling, that girl is gone. Hearing this, Wu Wen and He Liantian's expressions changed. The current Yi Ling was even more precious than before. Because the sword sect's founder had removed the restriction on Yi Ling's constitution, the current Yi Ling could reach the Dao realm in half a year at most. Moreover, there was no limit to Yi Ling's growth. The 2 of them disappeared. On an empty street in Shenwu City, a little girl rushed out of Shenwu City. Brother! The little girl cried as she ran. Her tears were like a broken dam. Soon, the little girl rushed to the gate of Shenwu City and shouted towards the outside. Brother! There was no response. At this moment, Wu Wen appeared in front of Yi Ling. Yi Ling looked at Wu Wen and felt wronged. Grandpa Wu, where is my brother? Wu Wen said softly. He left. Yi Ling squatted on the ground and held her face with both hands. She cried bitterly. He doesn't want me anymore? At this moment, she did not look like a manifestation realm expert at all. At this moment, she was a little girl panicking because she lost her brother. Wu Wen squatted in front of Yi Ling and said softly, Girl, it's not that he doesn't want you. He left to protect you. Do you understand? Yi Ling shook her head and tears flowed uncontrollably. I don't understand. I just want to follow him. I just want to follow him. As she spoke, she suddenly stood up and rushed outside. Brother. Wu Wen hurriedly stopped Yi Ling. Girl, do you know that you are his biggest weakness in this life? Yi Ling looked at Wu Wen. Her tears seemed endless. Wu Wen spoke in a low voice. Your brother is strong, extremely strong. However, he has a weakness, and his greatest weakness is you. The sword sect didn't defeat him, and neither did the Tang clan. But you defeated him, and you defeated him very easily. Do you understand? Yi Ling clenched his fists and said nothing. Wu Wen continued. You are his greatest weakness. If you were captured by the Tang clan, what would happen to him? Now that you're following him, can you help him? Girl, the current you needs to cultivate properly. Only when you are strong enough can you not implicate him and even protect him. Do you understand? Yi Ling clenched her fists. She didn't say anything. She just cried. She kept crying. Wu Wen said softly, As long as you are strong and safe, no one will be able to threaten your brother. Do you understand? Yi Ling wiped the tears off her face and looked around. Brother, I'll work hard. But you must promise me that nothing will happen to you. You must come and find me. You must. The surroundings were incomparably quiet. There was no response. Wu Wen said softly. He heard me. Yi Ling looked around blankly and said in a trembling voice. Brother, can you come out and see me for a while? Just for a while. I promise I won't pester you. I promise to go back and cultivate properly. Can you come out and see me for a while? However, there was still no response. Yi Ling cried even harder. Wu Wen's expression was rather complicated. He knew that the Yi Xian siblings had depended on each other since they were young and had a deep relationship. However, he didn't expect that this pair of siblings had such a deep relationship. Yi Ling wiped the tears off her face and pulled Wu Wen's hand. Grandpa Wu, let's go. Wu Wen nodded and pulled Yi Ling toward the divine martial city. When they reached the gate, Yi Ling suddenly stopped. She turned around and shouted, Brother, if you die, I definitely won't live. After saying that, she turned around and ran toward the divine martial city. At the city gate, Wu Wen turned his head and looked somewhere before turning around and leaving. Outside the divine martial city, Yi Xian suddenly appeared. He looked at the divine martial city with a calm expression. However, there were 2 streaks of tears on his cheeks. After a while, Yi Xian said softly, Girl, brother will live well. After saying that, he turned around and left. After a while, Yi Xian arrived at a mountain range. In front of a pool, the young lady of the Tang clan, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly opened her eyes. She looked in the opposite direction and saw someone standing there. All the experts of the Tang clan looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled faintly. Lady Tang, I came here to tell you something. Lady Tang smiled and said, What is it? Yi Xian smiled faintly. An illusory Xiao Ta suddenly appeared between his brows. Seeing the illusory Xiao Ta, Lady Tang narrowed her eyes. Yi Xian smiled and said, I want to tell Lady Tang that the treasure is in my hands, and I am going to the Order City now. Lady Tang, we will meet again. After saying that, he disappeared. No one made a move because it was not Yi Xian's real body that came, but a clone. The Order City. Lady Tang's expression was extremely cold. The Order City was the territory of the Order Alliance. Beside him, an old man said in a deep voice, He wants to lure us away. Young Mistress Tang looked at the divine martial city. She just looked at it calmly. However, everyone present could sense the rage of this eldest young Mississippi. The best way to make Yi Xian stay was to attack Wu Yuan. But now that Wu Yuan and the sword sect had joined hands, it would be very difficult for her to take them down. Especially Yi Xian. If she attacked Wu Yuan now, Yi Xian would definitely help. Even she did not dare to underestimate Yi Xian now. She had to be wary of a killer who could kill a Dao realm swordsman in seconds. Moreover, if Yi Xian went to the Order City now, if she attacked Wu Yuan, there was no guarantee that Yi Xian would not hand over the treasure to the Order Alliance. Once the treasure fell into the Order Alliance's hands, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens for the Tang clan to get it back. Or rather, they would have to pay a price that was at least 100 times higher than what they were paying now. After all, the Order Alliance was not something that Yi Xian and the Divine Martial City could compare to. Yi Xian's trip to the Divine Martial City had once again ruined all her plans. The old man next to Lady Tang said, Why don't we inform the family and ask them to send experts here? For that treasure, the family will definitely be willing. Lady Tang shook her head. If we do that, we will force him to hand over the treasure to the Order Alliance. At that time, it will be difficult for us to get the treasure. The old man said in a deep voice, Young lady, that treasure is so important, why didn't the family come in person? Lady Tang shook her head. He can't touch it. If he does, the one from the Order Alliance and the one from the Monster Clan will definitely take action. The old man understood. Contain. If the Tang Clan's strongest expert took action, the Order Alliance and the Monster Clan would definitely not sit idly by. Because no one wanted to see a situation where one clan was the strongest. Similarly, the Order Alliance's Star-Lord could not take action himself because if he did, the Tang Clan and the Monster Clan would also stop him. Lady Tang suddenly said, Everyone split up and head to the Order City. Saying this, Her expression gradually turned cold. Killing intent flickered in her eyes. As the Tang clan's experts left, Wu Wen and Yu Wuchen looked at each other in the sky above the holy martial city. Both of them felt relieved. At this time Wu Wen suddenly said, "We still can't be careless." Judging from this incident, the Tang clan and the Order Alliance obviously have a bigger plan. And we, without the Ancestors' clone, is equivalent to losing a deterrent force. Ancestors' clone. Whether it was Wu Wen or Yu Wuchen, they felt a little bitter in their hearts. Was the Ancestors' clone strong? Of course it was strong. Killing Dao realm experts was like killing chickens. Moreover, judging from the Sword Sect's ancestral master's attack, even a transcendent Sword Saint level expert would most likely be killed in a second. With the two clones, unless the Tang clan used the entire clan's strength, it was impossible to take down the Sword Sect and Wu Yuan. However, the Sword Sect and Wu Yuan had an internal conflict and called the two ancestors out to fight. The problem was, the relationship between the two ancestors was not ordinary. Stupid. Whether it was Wu Yuan or the Sword Sect, what they did this time could be said to be extremely stupid, especially the Sword Sect. It was especially so for the Sword Sect. Originally, the Sword Sect wanted to summon their ancestor to swallow up the martial institution and unify the divine martial city. However, they didn't expect that after their martial ancestor appeared, he directly killed their ally. He called out his biggest trump card to fight himself. Every time Yu Wuchen thought of this, he could not let it go. Wu Wen said softly, "I'm afraid the peace of this chaotic universe will be broken with Yi Xian's treasure." Yu Wuchen nodded, "I hope our two clans can survive this storm." Wu Wen looked at the distant horizon and said softly, "Actually, I'm most curious about the person behind Yi Xian. Until now, that person has not appeared. Is he worried about something?" Yu Wuchen looked at Wu Wen. "Brother Wu Wen, what strength do you think the person behind Yi Xian has?" Wu Wen shook his head. "I don't know. However, the person behind him is definitely not simple. Moreover, Yi Xian also gives me a mysterious feeling. That treasure fell into the hands of your Sword Sect, but it returned to his hands in the end. There is only one explanation. That treasure has already recognized him as its master." Hearing this, Wu Wen's face changed. "This?" Wu Wen looked at the horizon and said softly, "I'm afraid that the Tang clan and the Order Alliance can't do anything to him, and when the time comes, they will target his sister." Yu Wuchen wanted to say something but hesitated. Wu Wen also did not ask, because he knew what Yu Wuchen wanted to say. However, Wu Yuan would not give up on Enlanxiu and Yi Ling. This was because Enlanxiu had already obtained the inheritance of the Wu Yuan ancestral master, and Yi Ling's seal had been removed by the Sword Sect ancestral master. These two people would definitely shock the heavens in the future. Yu Wuchen sighed softly, the Tang clan, the Demon clan, the Order Alliance. They have already started to pay attention to Yi Xian. This Yi Xian's situation, Wu Wen said softly, it depends on his own luck. In a boundless starry sky, a sword flew quickly. The sword's speed was very fast, and after traveling for an unknown amount of time, it finally arrived at a small island. In the center of the small island, there sat a woman in a plain dress. She was playing chess. The woman raised a white chess piece and placed it down. A moment later, a black chess piece quietly landed on the chessboard. As this black chess piece landed, the outcome of the game was immediately decided. The woman in the plain dress was silent. At this moment, the chess piece on the chessboard suddenly disappeared, and a line of words appeared. 50 Great Daos, 49 Heavenly Evolutions, 1 man escapes. P.S. Seeking monthly votes. Chapter 556. Looking at the line of words on the chessboard, the plain-dressed woman fell silent. Just then, the sword slowly floated to the plain-dressed woman's side. It floated quietly and did not disturb the plain-dressed woman. After a long time, the plain-dressed woman suddenly chuckled. The great path is life, and life is like a game of chess. You can either be a chess piece or a player. With that, she waved her hand and the line of words disappeared. Just then, the sword beside her flew to her and trembled slightly as if it was saying something. After a while, the plain-dressed woman smiled and asked softly, "Is he okay?" The sword trembled and a faint sword hum sounded. After a moment of silence, the plain-dressed woman suddenly looked at a small flower not far away. The flower was delicate and beautiful. The sword suddenly pointed to the right. Clearly, The plain-dressed woman was following it. The plain-dressed woman shook her head. I've already led the way for him. He should walk the rest of the way himself. With that, she looked at the small flower and smiled. A flower that is protected by others cannot withstand the wind and rain. The sword trembled slightly as if it was saying something. The woman in the plain dress smiled and said, "The great Tao is something that is walked out, not protected by others." With that, she held the sword in front of her and walked towards the distant horizon. In the air, the sword trembled as if it was saying something. "Where are you going?" The plain-dressed woman looked at the end of the starry sky and smiled. "To kill people." By the time she finished speaking, she had already disappeared. And on the chessboard on the island, another line of words appeared. Tao cannot be spoken, Tao cannot be spoken, Tao can be spoken, Tao is not Tao. Order City in the Chaotic Universe. Order City was located in the Northern Wilderness Realm and was under the jurisdiction of the Order Alliance. It took Yi Xian less than half a day to reach the Northern Wilderness Realm. Because of the interstellar teleportation formation. There was an interstellar teleportation formation in the Xinwu City. With this formation, the entire chaotic universe could be said to be very small. And from the observed world, Yi Xian learned that there was a higher-level teleportation formation other than the interstellar teleportation formation. The space-time teleportation formation. This teleportation formation was very terrifying. It would take less than 15 minutes to travel from the southern wilderness region to the northern wilderness region. When the Tang clan's experts came to the Divine Martial City, they used this formation. However, this kind of formation also consumed a lot of resources. Ordinary forces simply couldn't afford it. Yi Xian looked at the Order City in the distance, and the introduction of the Order City appeared in his mind. Order City. This used to be the capital of the Order Alliance and was once the most prosperous city in the entire northern wasteland domain. However, it was no longer the case. This was because the Lawful Order Alliance had moved their capital to the Sky Mountain Range in the north of the northern wasteland domain. It was now the most mysterious Sky Mountain city in the northern wasteland domain. The reason why it was mysterious was because the Order Alliance didn't allow outsiders to enter Mountain Ascension City. Therefore, that place was extremely mysterious. As for the Order City, although it was no longer the capital of the Order Alliance, it was still bustling with activity. The entire orderly city was filled with the aura of history. Ancient. This was Yi Xian's first impression. Yi Xian did not openly enter the Order City. He could not defeat the Tang clan, let alone the Order Alliance. Moreover, he knew that the Order Alliance definitely knew that he was coming to Order City. These major forces did an excellent job in gathering information. On the streets, Yi Xian walked slowly. He was currently wearing a black robe and a black veil. Coupled with the chaotic energy that concealed his swordsman aura, ordinary people would not be able to detect him. On both sides of the streets, people came and went. They were all martial artists. Moreover, some of their auras were very powerful. Apart from that, he also sensed that there were a few hidden powerful auras in the city. After a while, Yi Xian found an inn. In the room, he sat cross-legged on the bed and entered the World Prison Pagoda. Cultivate. Although he was stronger than before, the enemies he encountered now were also stronger than before. He needed to improve his strength now. Yi Xian found the wooden puppet and began to spar with it. The wooden puppet's strength lay in its exquisite close combat swordsmanship. In close combat, it had a fatal suppressive force and targeted power. Right now, he had a huge flaw in close combat. Right now, his flying sword was strong, but his swordsmanship was very poor. Yi Xian used the wooden sword and began to spar with the wooden puppet. Although he had already reached the 10,000 Laws realm, if he did not use some powerful sword skills, he would still be somewhat suppressed when fighting with a wooden puppet. Of course, if he used his trump card and the soul-suppressing sword, the wooden puppet would definitely not be his match. Yi Xian practiced like this, again and again. The next day, Yi Xian suddenly sat on the ground. He had been training hard for 12 to 14 hours. It had to be said that sparring with this wooden puppet was very enjoyable. He had the same feeling when fighting with people in Qing City. When fighting with people in Qing City, it was a close combat fight. If one's reaction was slow, they might lose their life. In that kind of environment, playing to the limit, playing to the heartbeat. And now, when he was fighting against the wooden man, he felt the same feeling again. Very crazy. Very exciting. One careless move and he would either die or be injured. After resting for a moment, Yi Xian stood up and began to spar with the wooden puppet again. Inside the prison pagoda, Yi Xian was crazily cultivating while the emperor dog was sleeping soundly. For demonic beasts like them, sleeping was the best way to cultivate. As for Xiao Linger, she was still planting her spirit fruits. Right now, she had hundreds of spirit fruits. If these spirit fruits were sold, they would definitely be worth a city. It could be said that other than those few creation realm treasures, Yi Xian was not as rich as her. However, this little guy valued spirit fruits more than his life. Yi Xian did not dare to sell this little guy's spirit fruits. This little guy would go crazy. Xiao Linger had already occupied the 5th floor. Soon, she came to the entrance of the 5th floor. She held her chin with both hands and looked at the 6th floor, deep in thought. And beside her there was a sword. She picked up the sword and walked to the entrance of the 6th floor several times, but she seemed to be worried about something and gave up in the end. Of course, it was only temporary. She hugged the sword and turned to leave. On the 6th floor, a voice suddenly sounded. Is this little girl calculating whether she can beat me or not? On the 3rd day, Yi Xian lay on the ground. At this moment, his whole body was drenched in sweat. Not only that, but there were also dozens of bloody wounds on his body. At this moment, Lil Linger came up to him with 2 bright red fruits in her arms. Lil Linger handed the fruits to Yi Xian. Yi Xian did not stand on ceremony. He picked them up and ate them. As soon as the fruits entered his stomach, a wave of pure spirit aura immediately spread out from his body. Very quickly, the injuries on his body actually healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Yi Xian was shocked. He looked at the fruits in his hand and asked in astonishment, What fruit is this? Xiao Linger blinked. A little red fruit. Yi Xian. Xiao Linger asked, Is it delicious? Yi Xian nodded. Yummy. Xiao Linger pointed to the 2nd floor and said excitedly, Do you want some more? I have a lot. Yi Xian's mouth twitched. The fruits in his hand were definitely more precious than immortal crystals because of their terrifying recovery ability. At this moment, Xiao Linger suddenly approached Yi Xian and whispered, When will the 6th floor leave? Yi Xian's mouth twitched again. This little girl still had not given up on the idea. However, he was also a little curious. When would the 6th floor leave? Yi Xian looked up. Senior, can you leave the tower? The 6th floor said, Not at the moment. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? The 6th floor said, It is dangerous outside. It is safer to stay here. Yi Xian's face darkened. Senior, are you joking? The 6th floor sighed. I am not joking. It is indeed dangerous outside. Don't worry, I won't stay here. When it is time to leave, I will. Yi Xian hesitated. Senior, aren't you angry that you were locked up for so many years? The 6th floor smiled. You want to ask why I didn't do anything to you? Yi Xian smiled sheepishly and nodded. The 6th floor said, Firstly, the one who locked me up wasn't you, but this tower. Even if I wanted to take revenge, I would take revenge on this tower. Taking revenge on you is a sign of incompetence. Yi Xian asked again, Senior, don't you want this tower? The 6th floor smiled. This tower is a treasure. It would be a lie to say that I am not tempted. However, this tower is not something that I can have. This tower has great karma, and I couldn't even withstand it when I was at my peak, let alone now. So don't worry, I won't have any designs on your treasure. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Senior, you are wise. I am truly impressed. He was sincerely impressed. An expert like this knew what to take and what not to take. Being able to pick up and let go, this was a wise decision. Of course, it wasn't that he didn't want to let go, but that he couldn't. The World Prison Pagoda was already attached to him. The 6th floor said, Actually, the karma of this tower isn't something you can handle. However, you are no ordinary person. There is someone strong backing you to block most of the karma. Otherwise, you would have reincarnated a long time ago. Yi Xian smiled. No matter what, I hope we can get along well. The 6th floor said, That's exactly what I want. Even though we are not from the same era, your personality and temperament are to my liking. So, we should be able to get along well. Yi Xian wanted to say something, But he stopped. The sixth floor said, "What are you trying to say?" Yi Xian asked, "Senior, if I gather all 9 laws, can I really control this tower?" The sixth floor said, "No." Yi Xian was puzzled. "Why?" The sixth floor said, "Strength. If you aren't strong enough, you will never be able to make it serve you wholeheartedly. If you gather all the laws, you will only be able to use some of the pagoda's functions and restrict us who are imprisoned here." Yi Xian nodded. "I understand." The sixth floor said, "Do you want to see the 7th floor?" Yi Xian was startled. "I can see it?" The sixth floor said, "Yes, I can feel that the seal on the 7th floor has loosened. I can use my divine ability to let you see the 7th floor." At this moment Xiao Linger suddenly said, "Look, look." Yi Xian looked at Xiao Linger. Xiao Linger blinked. "There's a treasure." Yi Xian asked with a smile, "What treasure?" Xiao Linger shook his head. "I don't know." Yi Xian looked up at the 6th floor. "Then I'll have to trouble Senior." The 6th floor said softly, "It's nothing. I also want to know what kind of trash the 7th floor is. How can he be above me? This demon. I can't accept this." Yi Xian. Chapter 557. Unacceptable. Yi Xian was amused. Regardless of whether it was the 5th or 6th floor, they actually cared about why they were 1 floor lower than the others. But then again it made sense. Regardless of whether it was the 5th or 6th floor, they were all peerless powerhouses. They must have once shocked an entire era. The 7th floor. Yi Xian was curious. Xiao Linger said there were treasures inside. What kind of treasures could there be? This little guy was so mysterious. At this time the 6th floor said, "You are the pagoda master, so the pagoda will not hurt you. However, your strength is too low, so you need my help. Later, use your divine sense to force your way into the 6th floor." Yi Xian nodded. "Okay." The 6th floor said, "Calm your qi and focus." Yi Xian slowly calmed down. Soon his heart was at peace. At this time, a powerful force suddenly surged into his body. Yi Xian opened his eyes. In his eyes, sword rays flashed like lightning. Xiao Linger was startled and took a few steps back. She was panicking. At this time the 6th floor said, "Enter the 7th floor." Yi Xian ignored the terrifying force in his body. His divine sense went straight to the 7th and 6th floor. However, at the entrance of the 7th floor, a mysterious force blocked his way. Yi Xian quickly asked, "Senior, what should we do?" The 6th floor said, "What else can we do? Force your way in." Yi Xian gathered all of his divine consciousness and blasted it towards that force. Rumble. In an instant, Yi Xian felt like his head was hit by a hammer, and he almost fainted. But luckily, there was a force that kept stimulating him, preventing him from fainting. At this time the 6th floor's voice suddenly sounded, "Hurry up, the 7th floor's restriction will automatically repair itself. You don't have much time." Yi Xian quickly calmed himself down and looked up. At this time, he was already on the 7th floor. There was only a table on the 7th floor. On the table, there was a box. On the box, there was a candied fruit wrapped in spiritual energy. Beside the box, there was an ancient book. Other than that, there was nothing else. What the hell? A box? An ancient book? Yi Xian was a little confused. This was the thing that was locked on the 7th floor? At this time the person on the 6th floor suddenly said, "Look at that ancient book." Yi Xian's gaze landed on the ancient book. At this time, a line of words suddenly appeared above the book. Unparalleled martial art, infinite sword. Boundless sword? Yi Xian frowned slightly. He moved closer and continued reading. Using the sword as a thought, using the thought as a sword. Wherever the thought is, the sword is. With a single thought, I can launch a sneak attack and backstab an enemy within a 300 m radius. I can disregard any defense, any armor, any laws, any secret techniques, any divine abilities, any Tao laws, any restrictions of the heavens and earth, and any realm. Seeing this, Yi Xian was dumbfounded. An unparalleled martial art? Ignore everything? What the hell was this? Yi Xian suppressed the excitement in his heart and continued reading, because there was more. After killing the enemy, you can immediately enter the state of emptiness. You are not restricted by the heavens and earth. No laws, no secret techniques, no Tao laws, no cause, no effect. When he read this, a powerful force suddenly appeared in the 7th floor. Boom! Yi Xian's divine sense was directly driven out of the 7th floor. In the 1st floor, Yi Xian felt as if he had suffered a heavy blow and retreated a few meters. At this moment, his head was extremely heavy like lead. At this time, Xiao Linger carried 2 fruits to Yi Xian. Yi Xian quickly ate them. Soon, the heavy feeling in his head gradually disappeared. However, his heart was like a raging sea. He could not calm down for a long time. An unparalleled martial art. Judging from the introduction, that infinite sword was really too heaven-defying. Yi Xian sat on the ground and asked in a deep voice, "Senior, is that unparalleled martial art exaggerated?" After a moment of silence, the person on the 6th floor said, "No." Yi Xian was shocked. "How is that possible?" The person on the 6th floor said softly. "Now, I truly believe that this tower is from the 5th dimension." Yi Xian was confused. "Senior, what do you mean?" The person on the 6th floor said, "Although rumors say that this tower is from the 5th dimension, there is no direct evidence. But now there is. This unparalleled martial art exists not only in your era, but also in my era. Do you know why this martial art is so heaven-defying?" Yi Xian shook his head. "Senior, please enlighten me." The person on the 6th floor said, "Because it is not a 4th dimension martial art, but a 5th dimension martial art." 5th dimension. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "This unparalleled martial art is from the 5th dimension?" The person on the 6th floor said, "Of course. Otherwise, how could it be so heaven-defying? The reason why it can ignore everything is because it is higher than the laws and Tao laws of the 4th dimension, and it is not restricted by the 4th dimension. Moreover, this martial art should be one of the best in the 5th dimension. Otherwise, it would not be locked in here." Yi Xian was confused. Why would a martial art be locked in a tower? The person on the 6th floor said, "Maybe because it is too heaven-defying, or maybe it is something else. Whatever the reason, it is enough to prove that it is very terrifying. If you learn this martial art now, I think you can kill that transcendent sword saint from the sword sect in a second." Kill transcendent sword saint in a second? Yi Xian was startled, then he smiled bitterly. "Is it really that heaven-defying?" The person on the 6th floor said, "If it is not heaven-defying, why would it be locked in the 7th floor?" Yi Xian was about to speak, but Xiao Linger pulled his sleeve. Yi Xian looked at Xiao Linger, and Xiao Linger pointed upstairs, full of anticipation. "What is inside?" Yi Xian smiled. "A box and a stick of candied hawthorn." Candied hawthorn. A box. Xiao Linger blinked, then clapped her hands and said excitedly, "Mine, that is mine." Yi Xian, Xiao Linger seemed to think of something. She looked up at Yi Xian and said happily, "That is mine, she left it for me, hee hee." Yi Xian smiled. Okay, it is yours." Xiao Linger hurriedly said, "I want to go in." Yi Xian shook his head. "You can't go in for now." Xiao Linger asked, "Why?" Yi Xian smiled. "Anyway, we can't go in for now. Let's wait for a while, okay?" Xiao Linger blinked. "Okay." After saying that, she turned and ran away. At this time the 6th person suddenly said, "This little one's way of thinking is very dangerous. You better be careful, or else she might cause a big mess for you one day." Yi Xian nodded slightly. He also knew that Xiao Linger was a dangerous person. To say that she was naive, she had a lot of evil ideas, but to say that she was not naive, she did not understand a lot of things, she just thought it was fun. In any case, he had to be careful. Yi Xian seemed to think of something, and immediately asked, "Senior, is this unparalleled martial art stronger than my life and death sword?" The 6th person said, "You can't compare it like that. Your sword skill is more of a belief in the way of the sword. Its power depends on your understanding of the way of the sword. It can be said that this is a growth-type sword skill. As for this unparalleled martial art, it belongs to the 5th dimension. If you really want to compare, only the original owners of the 2 sword skills can fight it out. Only then will you know which is stronger." Yi Xian smiled. "Then there is no other way." The woman in the plain dress? At the thought of this, he suddenly missed her a little. The woman who could be said to be the one who changed Yi Xian's fate. He wondered where she was now. After a while, Yi Xian shook his head, collected his thoughts, and continued to cultivate. Sparring with the wooden man had greatly improved him, especially in terms of close combat. It could be said that he had undergone a qualitative transformation from before. Of course, he did not forget about his own life and death sword. One should know that his flying sword was now his most lethal trump card. And the divine blood technique. All of these could be combined with his life and death sword. Using blood to condense the sword. This divine blood technique was also one of his trump cards. He could use the opponent's blood to condense the sword, and then control the flying sword to defeat the enemy. In fact, this move was a group attack sword skill. The more enemies the better, because the more blood, the more powerful this divine blood technique would be. And the embark power could still be used. As for the God King sword, it was also one of his strongest trump cards. The enhancement of the dragon soul and dragon power was not just a little bit. Overall, his current strength was still somewhat dependent on external objects, and if he removed the soul-subduing sword and the God King sword, his strength would be reduced to a certain extent. And now, what he was training was his basic skills. He could use external objects, but he had to recognize himself. On this day, Yi Xian, who was cultivating, suddenly looked up. The next moment, he left the prison pagoda and returned to his room. And at this moment outside the room, a voice suddenly sounded, "Young Master Yi, our city lord invites you in." City lord? Yi Xian frowned slightly. He had been discovered? Yi Xian opened the door, and outside was an old man. The old man glanced at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi as well?" Yi Xian asked. "Your city lord?" The old man nodded slightly. After learning that young Master Yi had arrived, the city lord sent this old man to invite young Master Yi to the city lord's mansion. Yi Xian said with a smile, "What for?" The old man shook his head. "This old man doesn't know. Young Master Yi will know when you get there." Yi Xian asked, "What if I don't go?" The old man said, "This is up to young master." However, the city lord said that many people in the city are looking for young Master Yi, including a woman from the Tang clan. Tang clan's young miss. Yi Xian was silent. This woman still came in the end. After a moment, Yi Xian said, "Let's go." The old man nodded slightly. "Young Master Yi, please." Yi Xian walked out. Soon, under the old man's lead, he arrived at the city lord's mansion. In a large hall, the old man brought Yi Xian into the hall and quietly retreated. Not long after, a man walked in. The man's face was pale and he looked extremely weak. The man walked in front of Yi Xian and smiled. "Young Master Yi, I am the city lord of Order City, Lu Shibai." Yi Xian nodded. "City Lord Lu, why did you ask me to come here?" Lu Shibai smiled, and then he looked to the side. There, a woman walked out. She wore a black dress, and she had an extremely beautiful appearance. This woman was the Tang clan's young miss. Tang clan's young miss looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "Young Master Yi, I trust you've been well since we last met." Yi Xian smiled. "I haven't seen you for a few days, and Miss Tang has become even more beautiful. I wonder if Miss Tang is betrothed to someone." "Oh, I don't mean anything by it. I'm just asking, really." Tang clan's young miss looked straight at Yi Xian, and she suddenly smiled. "If young Master Yi is willing to give me that treasure as a betrothal gift, what harm is there in me marrying young Master Yi?" Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, "How about this? We'll have a son first, and after that, we'll give the treasure to our son. What do you think?" Tang clan's young miss stared at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Chapter 558. The atmosphere in the surroundings suddenly became slightly strange. At the side, Lu Shibai suddenly smiled and said, "Brother Yi, it's not a simple matter for you to become the son-in-law of the Tang clan." Yi Xian smiled. "It's fine. I'm willing to work hard." Lu Shibai shook his head. "Let's get back to business." Yi Xian looked at Lu Shibai and smiled. "Governor Lu, what role are you playing now?" Lu Shibai smiled. "Brother Yi, don't worry. I'm not greedy for the treasure. I was just dragged by Lady Tang to invite Brother Yi here for a talk." "Talk?" Yi Xian nodded. "Let's talk then. I'm a very reasonable person." Lu Shibai smiled. "Take your time. I'll keep a lookout for you." Then, he stood up and left. After Lu Shibai left, Lady Tang looked at Yi Xian. "What do I have to do for you to hand over the treasure?" She didn't use force because she couldn't do it in the City of Order. This wasn't the Tang clan or Shenwu city. If she used force, the Order Alliance would definitely intervene. When the Tang clan and the Order Alliance fought, Yi Xian would reap the benefits again. Yi Xian smiled. Lady Tang, I want to ask you something. Does the Tang clan know what the treasure is? Lady Tang said, if we don't know what the Dao Yi is, why would we pay such a huge price to get it? Yi Xian smiled. I'm all ears. Lady Tang was silent for a moment. It's from the 5th dimension. Yi Xian asked, what else? Lady Tang looked at Yi Xian. Isn't that enough? Yi Xian was stunned. Then he shook his head. You guys really scared me. A 5th dimension item. Clearly, these people's understanding of the World Prison Pagoda was that it came from the 5th dimension. Other than that, they didn't know anything else. Lady Tang suddenly said, Young Master Yi obviously knows more than me. Why don't you tell me? How should I address Lady Tang? Yi Xian asked. It's really rude to keep calling you that. Lady Tang looked at Yi Xian. Tang Qing. Tang Qing. Yi Xian said seriously, it's a good name. The word Qing is extraordinary. There's a saying in ancient times, the blue sky, the white clouds, the moon on earth, shining alone on the mountains and rivers for 10,000 suns. This blue character. Tang Qing suddenly said, Young Master Yi, are you really a swordsman? Yi Xian looked at Tang Qing. Of course. Tang Qing shook his head. Why do I feel like you don't look like a swordsman at all? On the contrary, I think you're more like a lowly cultivator. Really lowly. I'm not joking. Yi Xian was speechless. Tang Qing picked up the teacup on the table and took a sip. Then she said, Young Master Yi, please introduce me to that treasure. The corner of Yi Xian's mouth curled up. Why don't you go in and take a look yourself, Miss Tang? Go in myself. Tang Qing narrowed her eyes. At this moment, the hall suddenly became very quiet. A moment later, Tang Qing shook her head and smiled. Young Master Yi, aren't you afraid that I'll go in and take it away? Yi Xian said seriously, I'm not afraid, because I believe in Miss Tang's character. Tang Qing looked straight at Yi Xian. I'm afraid, because I'm afraid that I won't be able to come out after I go in. Yi Xian smiled. Miss Tang doesn't believe in my character? Tang Qing nodded. I really don't. Yi Xian was speechless. Tang Qing said seriously, Young Master Yi, you're a smart person. I don't want to beat around the bush with you. My Tang clan will not give up on the treasure you have. Not only my Tang clan, but there are also many unknown forces who are eyeing it. Young Master Yi, leaving this treasure on you is a scourge to you. Do you know that? Yi Xian nodded. I know. Tang Qing stared at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi is not a stupid person. You've been keeping this treasure for so long. It's not because you're greedy, but for some other reason. Yi Xian smiled. An illusory Xiao Ta suddenly appeared between his eyebrows. Seeing this illusory Xiao Ta, Tang Qing's eyes narrowed. Yi Xian smiled. Miss Tang, this is the treasure you want. Tang Qing looked at the Xiao Ta. She slowly clenched her right hand, but then loosened it. What do you mean, young Master Yi? Yi Xian said seriously, Miss Tang, I can tell you that if this treasure falls into your hands, it will bring disaster to your Tang clan. Do you believe me? Tang Qing shook her head. You know nothing about my Tang clan's strength. Yi Xian smiled. You know nothing about this pagoda's abilities and dangers. Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian put away the prison pagoda and said, Miss Tang, do you know what happened in the never-ending starfield that day? Tang Qing said, I know Dao Yi a little. Yi Xian smiled. Then do you know why the Astral Lord did not dare to go to the never-ending starfield that day? Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian and did not speak. Yi Xian said, Miss Tang, anyone who wants this pagoda will not have a good ending. To be honest, I might not have a good ending in the future. But now, it's not that I don't want to give it to you. I can't give it to you. Tang Qing frowned. Why? Yi Xian smiled and did not speak. Tang Qing's expression changed. It has already recognized you as its master. Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Tang Qing said in a low voice. If I want this treasure, I must kill you first. Yi Xian said. Yes. Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. Why are you telling me so much? Yi Xian smiled. I want to make you give up on the idea of taking the treasure. Tang Qing shook her head. Impossible. Even if I give up, my Tang clan will send someone else. Besides, young Master Yi, even if I believe you, my Tang clan will not allow this pagoda to fall into the hands of other factions, such as the Order Alliance or the demons. Yi Xian smiled. What do you plan to do next, Miss Tang? Tang Qing smiled. Prepare to watch the show. Yi Xian frowned. At this time, Tang Qing said, Young Master Yi, as you said, the treasure you have isn't simple. Of course, you aren't simple either. As such, I have issued a bounty for you in my name. Anyone who can kill you will be rewarded with 3 divine artifacts and 5 million divine crystals. Not only that, I have also revealed your whereabouts. Right now, there should be a lot of people gathered outside the city lord's mansion. Yi Xian was silent. Tang Qing continued, Young Master Yi, don't think about making a move against me. If you kill me, the people sent by the Tang clan might not use such a gentle method. Moreover, young Master Yi, you can't kill me. If I were you, I would immediately escape because the Order Alliance's experts should be on their way. Not only them, but the demon's experts might also arrive soon. Yi Xian stood up and gave Tang Qing a thumbs up. Good plan, Miss Tang. Tang Qing looked straight at Yi Xian and smiled. Compared to young Master Yi, I'm still far inferior. You played with my Tang clan and the sword sect in the palm of your hand. Your intelligence isn't ordinary. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly vanished. Tang Qing smiled coldly, and her body suddenly turned illusory. Not only her, but the space around her also turned illusory. Obviously, she wanted to teleport away through this space. She didn't want to fight Yi Xian right now, because it was meaningless. Since Yi Xian and the treasure weren't simple, then she would let Yi Xian fight with others. The Tang clan would watch the show from behind and wait for an opportunity to act. Right at this moment, Tang Qing's expression suddenly changed. Because the space around her suddenly returned to normal. Tang Qing was just about to attack, but a sword was already pressed against her forehead. Tang Qing stared fixedly at Yi Xian. How did you do that? Yi Xian didn't waste his breath at all. He just grabbed Tang Qing's shoulder and tossed her into the pagoda. Within the pagoda, Tang Qing looked around vigilantly. She knew that this was probably the treasure. A space of its own. Meanwhile, a young girl appeared in front of Tang Qing, and it was Xiao Ling-er. Xiao Ling-er was stunned when she saw Tang Qing, and then she turned around and ran. She vanished in the blink of an eye. But it didn't take long for her to appear in front of Tang Qing again. But this time, there was a sword in her hand. Xiao Ling-er was vigilant as she gazed at Tang Qing. Tang Qing's eyes narrowed slightly. She was just about to attack when a mysterious force suddenly enveloped her. The first level of the Tao Law. As soon as this force appeared, Tang Qing noticed that she was actually unable to move at all. At this moment, Tang Qing's expression finally changed. Or it should be said that she was slightly panicked. Only now did she realize that she didn't seem to be able to resist. Tang Qing gradually calmed down. In front of her, Lil Ling-er looked at her warily. Outside the pagoda. As soon as Tang Qing vanished, Lu Shibai suddenly walked in. He looked at Yi Xian and asked, "Where's Miss Tang?" Yi Xian smiled. "Miss Tang asked me not to tell her." Lu Shibai's eyes narrowed slightly. "Young Master Yi, it's best that you tell her." Yi Xian walked over to Lu Shibai and smiled. "City Governor Lu, this is a secret between me and Miss Lu." Lu Shibai looked Yi Xian in the eye. "What if I insist on young Master Yi telling me?" The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly. "Who do you think you are?" As soon as he finished speaking, a flying sword suddenly slashed towards the right. Hiss! In the blink of an eye, a bloody head fell from the space on the right. At this moment, Lu Shibai had already retreated outside the hall. In his eyes, there was a trace of fear. As Yi Xian walked out of the hall, Lu Shibai suddenly said, "Do you know what you're doing?" Yi Xian smiled. "It's none of your business." As soon as he finished speaking, he appeared outside the city governor's mansion. Beside Lu Shibai, an old man suddenly appeared. "Young master, do you want to keep him here?" Lu Shibai shook his head. "No. Even if we keep him here, it's meaningless. Killing him would only make things worse. Moreover, we can't kill him. The old man said in a deep voice. Could it be that this person did something to that Miss Tang? Lu Shibai shook his head. Go inform the Tang clan experts outside the city. As for the rest, let them handle it themselves. The old man nodded slightly and turned to leave. Yi Xian did not leave in stealth because he had to cause trouble. The bigger the trouble he caused, the safer Yi Ling and the others in Divine Martial City would be. He had to attract the hatred. Yi Xian swaggered out of the city governor's mansion. At the entrance, he glanced around. There were many powerful auras in the dark. Yi Xian suddenly laughed. I am Yi Xian. I am right here. Come, please do me. Chapter 559. At the entrance of the city governor's mansion, Yi Xian's thunderous laughter reverberated through the sky. At this moment, almost the entire Order City heard his voice. In the city governor's mansion, Lu Shibai looked at Yi Xian with a solemn expression. This Yi Xian was either overconfident in himself or a lunatic. At this moment, an angry roar resounded from outside the city governor's mansion. Little brat, don't be so arrogant. Grandpa will deal with you. As the voice resounded, a man suddenly appeared above Yi Xian's head. He was about to attack when a sword light suddenly shot up from the ground in an arc pest. In the air, the man's head flew off and blood splattered. The head fell to the ground and landed right beside Yi Xian's feet. Yi Xian kicked the head away and raised his head to look at the sky. He laughed loudly. Too weak. Show me something stronger. The surroundings quietened down and no one attacked again. No one dared. Because the expert that Yi Xian killed in an instant was a sage. And a Saint Realm powerhouse had been killed in seconds just like that. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly walked towards the outside of the city. Along the way, no one stopped him. However, there were some powerful auras around him. In next to no time, Yi Xian arrived at the city gate. At this moment, there were 39 people standing outside the city gate. The person in the lead was the Tang clan's Yuelao, and behind him were all the Tang clan's armored cavalry. If the Order Alliance did not interfere, this lineup was enough to trample the entire Order City. Yuelao stared at Yi Xian. What did you do to eldest miss? Yi Xian smiled. Miss Tang and I have already pledged to marry each other. Yuelao, from now on, we are a family. Yuelao was furious. *tu. At this moment, Tang Qing suddenly appeared beside Yi Xian. At this moment, Tang Qing's cultivation base had been sealed. This was not done by the prison pagoda, but by the 6th floor. In the prison pagoda could seal Tang Qing, but after coming out, the prison pagoda couldn't. However, as long as they entered the pagoda, the 6th floor could make a move. However, outside the pagoda, the 6th floor couldn't make a move. According to his words, he didn't want to attract the attention of the Tendo of the 4th dimension. No matter what, whoever entered the pagoda would be out of luck. Yi Xian walked to Tang Qing's side, his left hand wrapped around Tang Qing's waist. He said with a smile. Yuelao, go back and tell my future father-in-law that Qinger and I are truly in love. Tell him not to break us up. I don't want others to laugh at me. Yuelao flew into a rage. Yi Xian suddenly said, Qinger is already pregnant. Tell my future father-in-law that once the child is born, we will go back to see him. That treasure will be my, Yi Xian's, betrothal gift. Elder Yuelao was trembling in anger. He still wanted to say something, but Yi Xian had already disappeared with Tang Qing. Just as Yuelao was about to chase, Tang Qing's voice suddenly rang out in his mind. Don't chase. Yuelao stopped. The expression on his face was extremely unsightly. In the darkness, many experts were dumbfounded. This Yi Xian was Tang Clan's son-in-law? And that treasure was already given to Tang Clan as a betrothal gift? What was going on? Some people believed it, some didn't. No matter what, the situation had become even more complicated. Some experts who wanted to fight Yi Xian had already started to hesitate. Some even temporarily gave up on fighting Yi Xian. They were prepared to wait and see. Of course, there were some people who felt that something was wrong, but they didn't dare to act blindly without thinking. Inside the city lord's mansion, the old man beside Lu Shibai said in a deep voice, This Tang Qing is being controlled. Lu Shibai nodded. This Yi Xian isn't simple. The old man was about to speak, but at this moment, Lu Shibai suddenly looked towards the sky. The Order Alliance's people are here. Unfortunately, they are a bit late. Just as he finished speaking, several experts suddenly appeared in the sky above the city lord's mansion. Outside Order City, in a mountain range thousands of miles away, Yi Xian found a waterfall. He sat beside the pool. Not far from him was Tang Qing. Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. You want to shift the attention of the world to my Tang clan? Yi Xian nodded. Tang Qing said indifferently, some brainless people believe you, but do you think those with brains will believe you? Yi Xian smiled. It's enough that your people don't find trouble with me for the time being. Or rather, it's enough that they find trouble with me. And everyone else. Tang Qing squinted his eyes. You are attracting hatred, hoping that everyone's attention will be focused on you. This way, no one will care about your sister in Divine Martial City. Yi Xian smiled, not saying anything. Tang Qing glanced at Yi Xian. She walked to Yi Xian's side, sat down, and placed her feet in the river, gently floating with the water. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. He didn't care about Tang Qing. The current her couldn't escape. The restriction on the 6th floor, unless it was an expert above Dao realm, couldn't be broken. Even those above Dao realm might not be able to break it. Tang Qing suddenly asked, who placed the restriction on me? Yi Xian smiled. A senior. Tang Qing squinted his eyes. The rumored person behind you? Yi Xian shook his head. No, a senior who was originally in this pagoda. Tang Qing frowned. Your pagoda, there are people imprisoned? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Tang Qing said in a deep voice. How strong are they? Yi Xian smiled. If they come out, it shouldn't be a problem to destroy your Tang clan. Tang Qing shook her head. You don't know anything about my Tang clan. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then asked in his heart. Senior, with your strength, can you destroy this Tang clan? Let me clarify. This Tang clan should be extremely strong. The 6th person was silent for a moment, and then he said, Am I very weak in your heart? Yi Xian was stunned and then he shook his head. Of course not. The 6th person said, Then why are you asking me this question? You just need to understand one thing. I'm imprisoned on the 6th floor, and the experts of the Tang clan are still roaming around outside. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Senior, there are still geniuses out there. The 6th person said, Of course, but the true experts won't appear in this universe. Yi Xian was puzzled. Why? The 6th person said, Because if you go out of this universe, you will be rejected by the Tendo. Do you know what a Tendo is? Tendo? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't really know. The 6th person said, The spirit of this universe. Yi Xian asked, Is it strong? The 6th person said, Not strong, you can go defy the heavens in the future. Yi Xian's face darkened. Like hell, I'll believe you. At this moment, Tang Qing suddenly said, That senior is definitely strong, but do you really think he can go against my Tang clan? If he can, why is he holed up in the pagoda? Yi Xian looked at Tang Qing. Miss Tang, don't test me. Because even if I told you his true strength, you wouldn't believe me. Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. Tell me, I'll believe you. Yi Xian smiled. That senior is imprisoned in a treasure of the 5th dimension, Miss Tang Qing. Do you think he's simple? Tang Qing fell silent. Yi Xian shook his head, and didn't say anything else. He sat cross-legged on the ground, and then led Tang Qing into the pagoda. Cultivation. Whenever he had time, he would cultivate like a madman, and during this time, his close combat skills had greatly improved. Yi Xian was cultivating, the Emperor Hound was still sleeping, and Xiao Linger was still working on her spirit fruits. Tang Qing looked at the entire pagoda, and fell into deep thought. In the beginning, before coming into contact with the pagoda, she also felt that it was only a treasure, and couldn't possibly harm the Tang clan. But now, she gradually changed her mind. The feeling this pagoda gave her was terror. Extremely terrifying. Intuition told her that the Tang clan couldn't control this pagoda. And for the Tang clan to give up, that was impossible. Tang Qing pondered for a long time, and then she came to the 2nd floor, where Xiao Linger was working on her spirit fruits. Seeing Tang Qing, her expression instantly became alert. Towards humans, apart from Yi Xian, she was wary of everyone else. Tang Qing smiled. You're planting spirit fruits? Xiao Linger nodded. Yes. Tang Qing smiled. Why are you following a human? Clearly, She had already recognized Xiao Ling-er's identity. Xiao Ling-er blinked and then said, "He's a good person, he won't hurt me." Tang Qing asked, "How do you know he's not using you?" Xiao Ling-er looked at Tang Qing. "Are you trying to sow discord between me? Let me tell you, I won't fall for your trick, unless you chase the 6th floor away from me." Tang Qing narrowed her eyes. "Is he very powerful?" Xiao Ling-er nodded and said seriously, "Very powerful." Tang Qing asked, "Has he always been here?" Xiao Ling-er looked at Tang Qing. "Human, are you trying to trick me?" Tang Qing. Xiao Ling-er looked at Tang Qing. "If you do me a favor, I'll be tricked by you." Tang Qing. Xiao Ling-er pointed to the 6th floor. "The 6th floor, you help me chase away the guy on the 6th floor, and I'll let you trick me, how about it?" Tang Qing shook his head and smiled. "I don't have that ability." Xiao Ling-er spread her hands. "Then I won't be tricked by you." After saying that, she turned around and continued to play with her spirit fruits. Tang Qing was silent for a moment, then turned and left. Soon, she arrived in front of the Emperor Hound, looked at it, and frowned slightly. After a moment, her expression suddenly changed. You're the legendary guardian beast of the Protoss?" The Emperor Hound opened its eyes and looked at Tang Qing. "You know me?" Seeing the Emperor Hound admit it, Tang Qing's expression became extremely solemn. "It's really you. You're also locked here?" The Emperor Hound asked, "How do you know me?" Tang Qing said solemnly, "My Tang clan has some records about the Protoss." The Emperor Hound's expression was indifferent, and after a moment, it shook its head slightly and went back to sleep. The glory of the Protoss, after all, had become history. At this time, Tang Qing asked again, "Why are you here?" The Emperor Hound ignored Tang Qing, and Tang Qing didn't continue asking, returning to the 1st floor of the prison pagoda. Looking at Yi Xian, who was training with the wooden man, Tang Qing fell into deep thought. At this time, Yi Xian's expression suddenly changed, and the next moment, he directly left the prison pagoda. As soon as he left, the space in front of him split open, and a spear pierced through the air, stabbing straight at him. Chapter 560. When the spear came, Yi Xian didn't dodge. He took a quick step forward and stabbed with his sword. That sword was as fast as lightning. That sword was as sharp as an awl. Bang! The spear and sword shook violently and the two figures retreated rapidly. Soon, Yi Xian stopped. Not far from him stood a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man wore a tight-fitting robe. He stood ramrod straight and held a spear in his right hand. His eyes were as sharp as knives. The middle-aged man looked coldly at Yi Xian. "Where's the young lady?" "An expert of the Tang clan." Yi Xian smiled. "She's fine. Don't worry." The middle-aged man looked coldly at Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, I heard that you're a young talent. I didn't expect you to use a woman as a hostage." "That's not what a man would do." Yi Xian said indifferently. "I heard that the Tang clan is a great clan. I didn't expect you to send dozens of Dao realm experts to deal with a young man who's not even 20 years old. Is this what a man would do?" The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes. "It seems that you won't hand over the young lady." Yi Xian smiled. "I won't hand her over. I'll piss you off." The middle-aged man's eyes twitched. His eyes became colder. "Then go to hell." As he said that, he was about to attack. However, Yi Xian turned around and ran. He was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the dense forest. The middle-aged man's face changed. He stomped his right foot and dashed into the forest. However, when he entered the forest, Yi Xian had disappeared. The middle-aged man gripped his spear tightly in his right hand. He was extremely vigilant. Before he came, he already knew about Yi Xian. This person had the strength to kill Dao realm experts. No, he had the ability to kill Dao realm experts in seconds. He couldn't afford to be careless against Yi Xian, especially when it came to Yi Xian, who hid in the dark and assassinated him. The middle-aged man didn't continue to move forward. He started to retreat until he reached the edge of the forest. Then, he used his divine sense to scan the forest in front of him. However, he didn't find anything, and his expression became even more solemn. In the end, the middle-aged man hesitated for a moment before choosing to leave. Somewhere in the dense forest, Yi Xian frowned slightly. This guy actually didn't want to come in? If the other party came in, he was 90% sure that he could kill him. Of course, he was confident in facing them head-on. However, he couldn't face them head-on because he didn't know how many of them were rushing over. The Tang clan would not challenge him to a duel. Other than the Tang clan, he also needed to be careful of the Order Alliance. Seeing that the middle-aged man refused to enter, Yi Xian turned around and left. After the middle-aged man left, he returned to Order City. In a certain tea house in the city, a middle-aged man sat down. In front of him was an old man, Elder Yuelao. Yuelao looked at the middle-aged man. Failed? The middle-aged man nodded. Yuelao said solemnly, Lin Mook, this person can't be underestimated. The middle-aged man called Lin Mook nodded. I exchanged one move with him. This person's strength has surpassed the Dao realm. Rumor has it that he has many trump cards. If he uses them all, normal Dao realm experts won't be his match. Saying this, he looked at Yuelao. Is the miss still alive? Yuelao shook his head. I don't know. What is the family's attitude? Lin Mook said solemnly. You know that the miss has an engagement with the Qin clan. Once this matter spreads out, the Qin clan and our Tang clan will lose face. Saying this, he hesitated. Yuelao said softly. Is there anything you can't tell me? Lin Mook sighed. The Qin clan is worried about their face. I'm afraid they will. Yuelao's eyes narrowed. They dare. Lin Mook shook his head. Our Tang clan needs people now. The Qin clan can be considered our right hand. We have to care about their face. Yuelao said solemnly. What is the family's attitude? Lin Mook said, let me find her if... Saying this, he didn't continue. Yuelao's face sank. At this moment, Lin Mook said, the Qin clan might have already sent people out, and their goal. Yuelao said coldly, they wouldn't dare. Lin Mook shook his head. We have to find the miss first. Otherwise, the family might have already acquiesced to the Qin clan. Yuelao suddenly raged. That damned Yi Xian, he is a hooligan. That night, in the vast mountain range, Yi Xian leaned against a tree and sat down. In front of him was a bonfire. He had already used chaotic energy to cover the surrounding space. Opposite Yi Xian was Tang Qing. Yi Xian was roasting a wild chicken. It was golden and fragrant. Tang Qing suddenly asked, Why don't you ask me how he found you? Yi Xian said, Apart from you there is no one else. Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. Then you're just going to let it go like this? Yi Xian smiled. I don't care what method you use to inform your Tang clan's experts. I'll give you another chance. You have a second chance, but not a third. Tang Qing lightly said, Bringing me along will only make your situation more troublesome. Yi Xian shook his head. With or without you, my situation will become very troublesome. Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, your wisdom is outstanding. If you are willing to give up that treasure, Yi Xian smiled and said, Miss Tang Qing, firstly, although this treasure doesn't belong to me, it is indeed mine for now. Don't you think it's a little too far-fetched for you to claim that it's for my own good by snatching something that belongs to me? Second, I've told you before, it's not that I don't want to give it up, but that it is one with me. If I want to give it up, it won't be willing. Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. Then what do you plan to do? Become enemies with the entire world? Yi Xian shook his head. This isn't what I want. But if the entire world wants to become my enemy, then I have no choice. If I have to kill, then I have to kill. If I have to run, then I have to flee. Tang Qing's eyelids twitched. Are you crazy? Can you kill my Tang clan? Can you kill the Order Alliance? Can you kill the Demon clan? Yi Xian spread his hands. Then what do you think I should do? Surrender? I beg you to let me off this time. Actually, it wasn't that he didn't want to give up the world prison pagoda. Rather, this pagoda had already followed him and was connected to his divine soul. If this pagoda didn't voluntarily remove its connection with him, then if anything happened to it, he would be the first to die. Moreover, this was Yi Xian's item. Why would he hand it over? Moreover, if he handed it over, would they let him off? No. These people wouldn't let him off. The more he knelt, the faster he would die. Now that he had the pagoda, he had a trump card. At least if he couldn't win, he could perish together with them. Once he handed it over, he could only wait for death if he couldn't win. He wouldn't hand it over even if he died. Take a risk, take a gamble, everything is possible. Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian flicked his finger and a chicken drumstick landed in front of Tang Qing. The latter didn't stand on ceremony and ate it. After Yi Xian finished eating, he leaned against the tree and asked in his heart, "Senior, how can I unlock the 7th level?" He couldn't wait to obtain the unparalleled martial art in the 7th level. Immeasurable sword. If he could obtain this unparalleled martial art, his ability to protect himself would be greatly enhanced. The 6th person said, "Dao Law. If you can find the 7th level Dao Law, you can enter." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "If I find the 9th level Dao Law, will I be able to enter?" The 6th person said, "In theory, yes." Yi Xian was struck dumb. Then he asked, "Why in theory?" The 6th person said, "Why do you want to open the 9th level? Are you courting death?" Yi Xian, the 6th person said, "Did you forget about the 5th person? Or is it because I'm too easy to talk to that you think that everyone in the pagoda is easy to talk to?" Yi Xian broke out in a cold sweat. Indeed. He almost forgot about that. Although the 6th person was easy to talk to, Jian Zizai and the 5th person weren't easy to talk to at the beginning. Especially the 5th person. He almost killed him. The 7th person said, "Walk the path you're walking on." The 6th floor continued, "Walk the path you're walking on." As he said that, he seemed to have thought of something and looked at Tang Qing. "Miss Tang, are there any differences in the Dao realm?" He realized that he had met some Dao realm experts, but among them, there were weak and strong ones. He realized that he had met some Dao realm experts. But among these Dao realm experts, there were some who were weak and some who were really strong. Tang Qing glanced at Yi Xian. "You don't know?" Tang Qing said, "Dao realm is divided into 3 types. Beginning Dao, knowing Dao, and proving Dao. Beginning Dao is to know the existence of Dao, and knowing Dao is to have a certain understanding of Dao. Proving Dao is to have a good understanding. The Genesis Dao is to know the existence of the Dao, and this first knowledge is to have a certain understanding of the Dao, and this Dao validation is to have more or less understood. Beginning Dao is to know the existence of Dao, and knowing Dao is to have a certain understanding of it. Proving Dao is to have a good understanding of it." Tang Qing said, "Those who came this time are all at the Genesis Dao realm. However, their strength isn't something that the Genesis Dao realm experts outside can compare to." Tang Qing said, "Our Tang clan cavalry is divided into 3 types. Proving Dao realm cavalry, beginning Dao realm cavalry, and above that." She looked at Yi Xian. 3 different levels of Tang clan cavalry. This woman was telling him how strong the Tang clan was. Yi Xian asked, "What level are Mu Fengchen and Wu Wan from the sword sect?" Tang Qing said, "Knowing Dao realm." Yi Xian asked, "What about Yu Wuchen?" Tang Qing said, "He's still knowing Dao realm." Yi Xian frowned, but his strength far surpasses Wu Wen and Mu Fengchen. Tang Qing said, "Because he has another identity, the Extraordinary Sword Saint. The Extraordinary Sword Saint is equivalent to the Dao Validation Realm. If he attains the Dao Validation Realm and is an Extraordinary Sword Saint, then he can even easily surmount realms to kill experts above the Dao Validation Realm." An Extraordinary Sword Saint. Yi Xian said solemnly, "Miss Tang, what level do you think he is in the Sword Dao?" He was a great sword immortal before this, but he didn't know what level he was at now. Tang Qing glanced at Yi Xian. "Cheap Sword Saint. Extraordinary Cheap Sword Saint." Yi Xian was taken aback, and then he said, "Am I considered a transcendent sword saint?" Tang Qing nodded. "Yes. Even Yu Wuchen isn't a match for you at the same level." Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. Also, I want tickets. Chapter 561. Yi Xian's face darkened. How could he not hear Tang Qing's sarcasm? Yi Xian didn't want to argue with her. He leaned against the tree and asked, "Miss Tang, why did the Sword Sect and Wu Yuan decline to this extent? In the observed world, the Sword Sect and Wu Yuan were as famous as the Order Alliance and the Tang clan. But now, the strength of the Sword Sect and the martial institution wasn't just a little bit inferior to the Tang clan." Tang Qing shook her head. "That's because you don't know when they were at their peak. When the Sword Sect was at its peak, who dared to disrespect them? At that time, there were more than 30 transcendent sword saints in their sect. Back then, there was an incident where the sacred son of the demon race killed a disciple of the sword sect. After that, 16 transcendent sword sages charged into the demon race's hinterlands, forcing the demon race to execute that sword sect disciple. Yi Xian frowned. The demon race didn't dare to fight? Tang Qing said calmly. How? You don't know how terrifying 30 transcendent sword saints were. When they joined forces, they could destroy the world. Moreover, the sect master of the sword sect was unfathomable. In addition, they were on the same side as Wu Yuan. How could they fight? I'm afraid they couldn't kill the demon race. Yi Xian nodded slightly and asked, What about Wu Yuan? Tang Qing said in a deep voice, When Wu Yuan was at its peak, a super genius appeared in Wu Yuan. His name was Zhou Yafu. When this person was around, Wu Yuan was at its peak. This person was invincible. He looked for people to fight every day. First he fought with the demon king of the demon race. Then, he fought with the Tang clan master. Finally, he fought with the Order Alliance's Star Lord. Speaking up to this point, she paused and said, He even won. Yi Xian was speechless. Tang Qing said, At that time, he alone was enough to block a magnificent army, and that time could also be said to be the peak period of the martial arts institution. Yi Xian asked, Is Zhou Yafu still coding? Tang Qing said softly, I don't know. I only know that he went to the Eastern Wasteland domain in the end. He probably went to the Divine Kingdom. As for whether he was beaten to death or went somewhere else, I don't know. Yi Xian frowned. Is a Divine Kingdom very powerful? Tang Qing was silent. Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, Tang Qing suddenly said, Back then, he almost unified the myriad worlds. Do you think he's amazing? Yi Xian said, I know about this. I think it was stopped by that Star Lord back then. Tang Qing said softly, I'm afraid only the Divine Kingdom and the Star Lord know what happened at that time. At this point, she wanted to say something but stopped. Yi Xian asked, What's wrong? Tang Qing glanced at Yi Xian. Fine, I'm afraid I won't be able to live for long anyway, so there's nothing I can't say. Do you know why there were so few records about the Divine Nation and the Star Lord after that? Yi Xian shook his head. Tang Qing said, Because the Star Lord died in battle. Yi Xian asked in a low voice. Died? Tang Qing nodded. He died a terrible death. His body is still hanging in the Eastern Wasteland Domain's God Burial Plain. This is also a disgrace to the Alliance of Order. Everyone in the Alliance of Order wants to bring back their ancestor's body. Yi Xian frowned. No, if the Star Lord was defeated, why would the Divine Kingdom retreat? Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. This has something to do with you. Yi Xian was stunned. Something to do with me? What? Tang Qing said in a low voice. This treasure of yours first appeared in the God Burial Plain and disappeared in the end. Therefore, my ancestors speculated that the Divine Kingdom's retreat might have something to do with this treasure of yours. But as for the specific reason, we are not sure. It had something to do with this tower? Yi Xian shook his head. The tower couldn't speak or it would know what had happened. The great god and the others on the second floor were locked up and in a deep sleep. They must not know what had happened. No. Someone knew what had happened. The girl in the plain dress. She wasn't locked up. This plainly dressed woman definitely knew what had happened back then. Tang Qing added, No matter what, the future generations should remember Gu Tatian. If it wasn't for him, the world would be under the Divine Kingdom's rule. Yi Xian smiled. Maybe it's not a bad thing? Tang Qing shook his head. It's definitely a bad thing. Those who are conquered won't be treated well. Moreover, once they are unified, they won't have any enemies. At that time, it will be a disaster for those who are ruled. Yi Xian nodded. You're right. He then looked at Tang Qing. Miss Tang, what about the Tang clan's peak? Tang Qing said, The first was 1,000 years ago, when the Tang clan's most outstanding clan master appeared. The second is now. Yi Xian was puzzled, but Tang Qing said, I can't tell you that. Yi Xian nodded. Okay, I won't ask. Tang Qing said, In fact, the sword sect and Wu Yuan didn't decline because of their internal problems. Of course, it had nothing to do with their internal problems in the beginning. Every force has its peak and weak moments, but they didn't stabilize themselves when they were weak. Not only that, but they also consumed each other. Just like this time, they wasted their greatest trump card, the ancestor's avatar, for the sake of internal strife. She shook her head. If they hadn't wasted the ancestor's soul, I wouldn't have attacked the sword sect. The reason why they have fallen to such a state is because their decision-makers made stupid decisions one after another. At this point she looked at Yi Xian. One more thing, and that is the utilization of talents. You will never know how much our clan values talents. As long as you are talented, no matter who you are, where you were born, or where you came from, we will value you. Of course, nothing is more important than the clan's interests. However, if your development is in line with the clan's interests, the clan will nurture you at all costs. Not only that, as long as you are strong and beneficial to the clan, even a woman can become the clan master. In the history of the Tang clan, there have been 9 female clan masters. Here, we don't discriminate. Even if you are an illegitimate child, as long as you are capable, the position of crown prince will immediately be yours. That clan master left behind a message. Yi Xian asked, "What message?" Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. "If you are capable, you can do it." Yi Xian. "If you are capable, you can do it." Yi Xian was silent. At this moment, he was still a little shocked. There was a reason why such a large clan was so powerful. At this moment, he thought of the Qingcheng Yi clan. Back then, those elders of the Yi clan only cared about their own interests. In front of them, the clan's interests were nothing. Just like that great elder. In order to let his grandson ascend the position, he could be said to be unscrupulous. Tang Qing didn't say anything else. She leaned against a tree and quietly ate the chicken drumstick in her hand. Not far away, Yi Xian also didn't say anything else. He took out a wooden figure. This wooden figure was Yi Ling. Yi Ling. Yi Xian gently stroked the wooden figure. He wondered how that lass was doing now. Not far away, Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian and fell into deep thought. No matter what the outcome of Yi Xian's scheme was, she knew that it wouldn't end well for her. As a member of the Tang clan, she had a lot of resources, but also a lot of helplessness. In short, the clan's interests were paramount. For the clan's interests, even the clan master could be sacrificed. What more her? A moment later, Tang Qing slowly closed her eyes. The surroundings were silent. Wu Yuan. In a cave, Yi Ling sat cross-legged on a praying mat. The aura around her was getting stronger. Outside the cave was Wu Wen and all the Dao realm experts in Wu Yuan. After Enlanxio broke through, it was now Yi Ling's turn. Moreover, Yi Ling was also trying to break through to the Dao realm. Once Yi Ling succeeded, Wu Yuan would have 2 young Dao realm experts. No, 4. Because even Wan Li and Mo Xia already showed signs of breaking through to the Dao realm. Monsters. The 4 most monstrous people in Wu Yuan. Once all 4 of them successfully entered the Dao realm, it had to be said that the entire Wu Yuan was excited. Because Wu Yuan had been quiet for too long. In time, the martial arts institution would be able to return to its peak. Of course, they were nervous as well because they were afraid of being suppressed by the Order Alliance, Tang Clan, and the Demon Race. Now that Wu Yuan had lost its strongest trump card, if those people were to act against Wu Yuan, then Wu Yuan would be in an extremely dangerous situation. At the entrance to the cave, Qin Shan suddenly appeared by Wu Wen's side. There's news of him. Wu Wen gazed at Qin Shan, and the latter spoke in a low voice. He kidnapped the eldest young miss of the Tang clan in Order City. The experts of the Tang clan are looking for him now. Moreover, according to what I know, the experts of Order City are looking for him as well. Wu Wen's expression eased up slightly when he heard this. Yi Xian keeping these powers busy was naturally great news for Wu Yuan. Moreover, the longer they could keep him busy, the better. Wu Wen fell silent for a moment before he asked, "How is he now?" Qin Shan shook his head. His whereabouts are unknown. However, he might show himself again. When he spoke up to hear, he hesitated for a moment before he said, "If he doesn't show himself, then no one will be able to do anything to him." All of them were aware of Yi Xian's concealment technique, and if Yi Xian kept fleeing and concealing himself, then no one would be able to do anything to him. Wu Wen shook his head. He won't. As he spoke, he gazed at the nearby cave. If he does that, then those hostile powers will target Yi Ling. So, he won't conceal himself. Qin Shan sighed softly. He's actually quite loyal. Wu Wen nodded. He really is. However, no matter if it's my Wu Yuan or the sword sect, we can't let him live. As he spoke, he raised his head and looked towards the horizon. I hope he's blessed by the heavens. Qin Shan nodded lightly. I hope so. Order City. Within the mountain range, Tang Qing, who was leaning on a tree, suddenly opened her eyes, and she looked at Yi Xian, who was nearby. You might be in big trouble. Yi Xian furrowed his brows slightly. What do you mean? Tang Qing looked straight at Yi Xian. Order Alliance has already invited Liang Dao sect, and your whereabouts will soon be known by them. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, my concealment technique is very powerful. Tang Qing shook her head. As long as you haven't surpassed this tendo, you won't be able to hide. Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, the voice from the 6th floor suddenly sounded. Kid, someone is calculating you. Yi Xian was stunned. What do you mean? The 6th floor said, calculating. This person is quite skilled. Oh. I should remind you to run. Run. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. Chapter 7. I have no other requests except for monthly votes and subscriptions. Today is double monthly votes. If I tip 1 monthly vote, I will get 2 monthly votes and so on. Monthly votes. All readers who come to Zongheng to subscribe and support me. A small subscription is the biggest support for me. Today, 5 readers will be selected to send physical books. These are the last 5 books and also the last draw. Thank you to all readers. Monthly votes, subscriptions, support. Please love me. Chapter 562. Run. As soon as the voice on the 6th floor faded away, Yi Xian got up and disappeared with Tang Qing. At the instant when Yi Xian and Yi Xian disappeared, an old man suddenly appeared on the scene. The old man wore a green robe, held a tortoise shell in his left hand, a string of copper coins in his right, and a pair of straw sandals on his feet. As soon as the old man landed on the ground, a black-robed old man appeared by his side. The black-robed old man spoke in a low voice. Heavenly Master Li, did they escape? Heavenly Master Li glanced at the surroundings and spoke softly. He knows we're coming. He's not simple. The black-robed old man nodded. According to our information, he really isn't simple. Heavenly Master Li's eyes narrowed. I suspect he's being guided by an expert. An expert. The black-robed old man frowned. An expert. Heavenly Master Li nodded. He's so young, so it's impossible for him to see through the old man's divination technique. There's only one explanation. Someone saw through it and told him. The black-robed old man spoke in a low voice. Can Heavenly Master Li divine the other party? Heavenly Master Li pondered for a moment, and then he said, let the old man give it a try. As soon as he finished speaking, his right palm trembled lightly, and the string of copper coins in his hand suddenly flew out. The copper coins fell to the ground in a messy mess. Heavenly Master Li looked at the copper coins on the ground, and then his right finger started moving. Gradually, the copper coins in front of him started moving, and the space around him started trembling as if something was moving. A few thousand kilometers away. The voice of the 6th person suddenly resounded in Yi Xian's mind. Stop! Yi Xian immediately stopped. The 6th person said, someone's divining you. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. What should we do? The 6th person said, enter the pagoda. Yi Xian asked, so they can't divine me? The 6th person said, of course. If they could divine this lousy pagoda, would they still be living in this lousy place? Yi Xian smiled embarrassedly, and then he hurriedly entered the pagoda. The moment Yi Xian entered the World Prison Pagoda, Heavenly Master Li, who was thousands of miles away in the mountain range, suddenly frowned. The black-robed elder hurriedly asked, how is it? Heavenly Master Li looked into the distance and frowned. Strange. How strange. Feng Xiuan could still detect the trace of this person's aura, but at this moment, it suddenly disappeared, as if he had evaporated. The black-robed old man said in a deep voice, why is it like this? Heavenly Master Li looked at the copper coins on the ground. At that moment, all the copper coins had stopped. Heavenly Teacher Li said softly, There are only two possibilities. The first is that he's dead, and his soul has been destroyed, completely disappearing. The second is that he used something to conceal himself and has already jumped out of this world. The black-robed old man said in a low voice. The second. Heavenly Master Li nodded. This person is not simple. As he spoke, he looked into the distance and said softly, Of course, if he appears, I will know him at the first possible moment. The black-robed old man said, Heavenly Master Li, don't leave me during this period of time. Yi Xian is too strong, and he's especially skilled in the art of assassination. Even a Dao realm expert would find it difficult to resist his assassination. Heavenly Master Li said with a smile, Will he come to kill me? The black-robed old man was just about to speak when Heavenly Master Li's pupils suddenly constricted. He turned around, opened his palm, and a copper coin blocked the space between his brows. And at the space between his brows, a sword had appeared out of nowhere. However, this sword just happened to be blocked by the copper coin. The black-robed old man reacted extremely quickly and blasted his palm forward. Bang! Rumble! The space in front of the two of them trembled. At the same time, a figure retreated explosively. It was Yi Xian who retreated explosively. The black-robed old man was just about to attack again when Heavenly Master Li suddenly said, This is an illusion. As soon as he said that, he opened his right palm and quickly wrote a word with his left hand. Then, he gently pressed his right hand forward. Break! As soon as he said that, the space in front of the two of them suddenly became illusory, but it quickly returned to normal. At this moment, Yi Xian was no longer there. Heavenly Master Li said softly, This concealment technique is really amazing. The black-robed old man's expression was somewhat ugly. Just now, Yi Xian had actually attacked in front of him. He looked at Heavenly Master Li. Heavenly Master, can you find his whereabouts? Heavenly Master Li shook his head. Not at the moment. The black-robed old man frowned slightly and was puzzled. Why? Heavenly Master Li said softly. That sword strike of his just now wasn't really to kill me, but to break my qi. There's an expert behind this person. As he said that, he suddenly became somewhat excited. All right, let's let the old man fight with him. Let's return to the city. I'm going to set up a formation. As soon as he said that, he turned and left. The black-robed old man also turned and left. Not long after the two of them left, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in the field. His expression was somewhat solemn. That Heavenly Master Li didn't seem like a weakling at all. As the sixth person said, the other party's divination technique did have some skill. Right now, his greatest advantage was that he could hide in the dark. Once he lost this advantage, his situation would become very bad. At this moment, the sixth person suddenly said, Does he want to fight me? Hearing that, Yi Xian was overjoyed and hurriedly said, How could he be a match for you, senior? The sixth person said, Don't even think about fighting me. I won't fight and I can't fight. Yi Xian was speechless. The sixth person said, This divination technique is a rather evil secret technique. Even in my era, it was relatively rare. The most powerful thing about it is that it can borrow the earth eye, the heaven eye, and the eye of all things. That person, Feng Cun, can already borrow the earth eye, and knows how to calculate with his fingers and the tortoise-shell divination technique. Although your chaos was strong enough before, it couldn't cut off your fate and karma. This divination and calculation is using your fate and karma to find you. Yi Xian smiled bitterly and shook his head. I still don't quite understand. The sixth person said, It's normal. The art of divination is mysterious, and ordinary people can't understand it. Yi Xian asked, Senior, how should I deal with it? The sixth person said, That's your problem. Yi Xian was speechless. The sixth person said again, I'm going to rest for a while. If I'm fast, I'll wake up in half a month. If I'm slow, I'll wake up in half a year. I hope you're still alive when I wake up. Take care. Yi Xian hurriedly said, Senior, I have another question. However, there was no response. Yi Xian's face darkened. This guy was sleeping at a time like this. What the hell? How was he going to deal with Heavenly Master Li? After a moment of silence, Yi Xian turned around and left. He didn't choose to continue running. Instead, he walked toward Order City. It wasn't his style to keep hiding. Soon, Yi Xian returned to Order City. As soon as he arrived, he felt a powerful energy wave. Yi Xian followed the energy wave and soon arrived in front of an altar in the center of the city. On the altar, Heavenly Master Li was fiddling with something. Seeing Heavenly Master Li, Yi Xian frowned slightly. Clearly, he was setting up a formation to deal with him. In the dark, Yi Xian looked around. There was no one around except for the black-robed elder who followed Heavenly Master Li. Of course, he wasn't stupid enough to believe that there was only one expert. Yi Xian quietly retreated. On the altar, Heavenly Master Li was holding a wooden sword and gesturing something. In front of him was a sand table. In the sand table, the sand suddenly began to tremble. Beside him, the black-robed elder crossed his arms and closed his eyes to rest. However, his divine sense was constantly covering the surroundings. Of course, he hoped that Yi Xian would appear. If Yi Xian appeared, he could save himself a lot of trouble. On the altar, Heavenly Master Li suddenly pointed the wooden sword in front of him. Appear. As soon as he said that, his face instantly turned pale. And in the sand table, a figure quietly appeared. Not only that, but the surrounding environment was also displayed. Although it was a little blurry, it was getting clearer. The black-robed elder stared at the sand table. He knew that the sand table would soon show Yi Xian's position. Within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles, they could rush over in an instant. At that time, Yi Xian wouldn't be able to escape even if he had wings. Soon, Yi Xian's appearance and the surrounding environment on the sand table became clearer. The black-robed elder stared at the sand table. Heavenly Master Li's face became even paler. Not only that, but cold sweat also flowed down. And at this moment, there was a sudden change. The appearance of Yi Xian, that appeared on the sand table, suddenly disappeared. Heavenly Master Li and the black-robed elder were directly stunned. But what shocked them even more was that the surrounding spiritual energy was all gone. Not only the surrounding area, but the entire orderly city's spiritual energy had actually disappeared completely. What's going on? The black-robed elder suddenly swept his gaze around, his face full of confusion. Heavenly Master Li also frowned, his face full of confusion. Without spiritual energy, his formation would naturally lose its effect. But the problem was, why was there no spiritual energy? Moreover, the entire orderly city's spiritual energy had disappeared. How was that possible? As the spiritual energy in the orderly city disappeared, the entire orderly city fell into a panic. The sudden disappearance of spiritual energy made many people uncomfortable. Because without spiritual energy, what could they do with a little bit of spiritual energy in their bodies? It was gone after releasing a martial arts technique. In front of the altar, Heavenly Master Li suddenly said in a deep voice, "It might be Yi Xian's doing." The black-robed elder looked at Heavenly Master Li, and the latter said, "No, he definitely doesn't have the ability to do so. It must be the person behind him." As he spoke, he looked at the black-robed elder. "Has the Order Alliance found out about the background of the person behind him?" The Order Alliance shook their head. "Only the Star-Lord knows about Dao Yi, but he didn't tell us." Heavenly Master Li frowned slightly, and he thought to himself, Yi Xian is clearly not simple. If we continue to do this to Yi Xian, it's very likely that we'll lose both myself and the Liang Dao sect. Meanwhile, the black-robed elder suddenly said, "Don't worry, Heavenly Master Li. Our Order Alliance will deal with Yi Xian and the person behind him. Heavenly Master Li just needs to find his whereabouts." Heavenly Master Li shook his head. "There's no spiritual energy, and setting up a formation requires a huge amount of spiritual energy." The black-robed elder said, "We'll provide divine crystals." Heavenly Master Li shook his head. "This person is too mysterious, and he's not an ordinary person. I'll have to return to the sect and ask my master to see if our Liang Dao sect can deal with Yi Xian." The black-robed elder's face instantly darkened. "Fuck, you still want to see if you can deal with him?" Chapter 563. Heavenly Master Li's expression became more serious the more he thought about it. He had only come to return a favor to the Order Alliance. To him, finding someone was naturally a small matter. But from the looks of it, it wasn't that simple. He knew that Yi Xian had a treasure on him, but he didn't know much about Yi Xian. But now, he realized that Yi Xian wasn't simple. He might have an expert behind him. If this continued, he might bring disaster to himself and the sect. He had to first see if this person could be dealt with. Thinking of this, Heavenly Masterly turned around and left. The black-robed elder didn't even stop him. Seeing Heavenly Masterly disappear into the horizon, the black-robed elder's expression was extremely ugly. He really left? The black-robed elder was a bit stunned. Moments later, the black-robed elder turned around and left. Without the Liang Dao sect, if Yi Xian didn't show himself, no one could do anything to him. There was only one way to make the Liang Dao sect continue to act, and that was to get the sect master to agree. Within the Order City, as the spiritual qi disappeared, the entire Order City fell into a state of panic. It should be said that the entire Order City was in chaos. Humans were greedy. Usually, many people hid it well, but once there were no laws or moral restraints, they wouldn't even recognize themselves. But soon, the entire Order City regained its calm. This was because those who took the opportunity to cause trouble were beheaded without any warning, and their corpses were thrown onto the streets. In less than 2 hours, the streets of the Order City were piled with over 100 corpses. Among them, there were over a dozen manifestation realm experts. It was truly a bloodbath. In a certain tavern, Yuelao and Lin Mu sat opposite each other. Yuelao said solemnly, "I received news that Heavenly Masterly also failed." Lin Mu looked around. This city's spiritual qi suddenly disappeared. Was he the one who did it? Yuelao nodded. Yes. This happened in the sword sect too. Lin Mu frowned. How did he do it? Yuelao shook his head. I don't know, Lin Mu said solemnly. The family has sent a message. Yuelao hurriedly asked, what does the family mean? Lin Mu said, the Qin family has asked the family to cancel the engagement. Yuelao flew into a rage. How dare they? Lin Mu shook his head. The Qin family's explanation is that the miss has fallen into the hands of that Yi Xian. Even if she doesn't die, her innocence will be ruined. Thus, they want to cancel the engagement. Yuelao said in a low voice. Clan head has already agreed. Lin Mu nodded. Also, pass down the order that if the eldest miss has already perished, then avenge her at all costs. But if she hasn't perished, at this point, he didn't continue. Yuelao stood up. I'll make a trip back to the clan. Lin Mu shook his head. It is already a foregone conclusion. Yuelao's expression immediately became extremely ugly. Wuliang Mountain. The Wuliang Mountain was located in the northern wasteland domain, hundreds of thousands of miles away from the City of Order. The Wuliang Mountain was 9,900 meters tall. If one looked down, the entire mountain seemed to be standing in the endless starry sky, and one could reach out and pluck the stars. After returning to the immeasurable mountain, Heavenly Masterly went straight to the immeasurable hall. Inside the hall, Heavenly Masterly bowed slightly to the old man. Master. The old man wore a hemp robe and his beard was so long that it could touch the ground. This person was the current sect master of the Liang Dao sect, Mo Wuliang. Mo Wuliang said, You came for that Yi Xian? Heavenly Masterly nodded. Yes. Disciple couldn't find this person's whereabouts even with the tortoise-shell technique and the earth-finding array. I'm afraid there is an expert behind this person, so I came to ask Master if this Yi Xian can be offended by my Liang Dao sect? Mo Wuliang shook his head. I won't interfere in this matter. Heavenly Masterly frowned. Master, who is behind this Yi Xian? Mo Wuliang stood up and walked to the entrance of the hall. He looked up at the starry sky and said softly, No matter who it is, it's someone we can't afford to offend. Heavenly Masterly said in a low voice. So strong? Mo Wuliang said indifferently. If he isn't strong, then how can Yi Xian live until now with the treasure? And that treasure, although it is the world's treasure, it is also the world's #1 disaster. Heavenly Masterly asked, My Liang Dao sect won't participate? Mo Wuliang was silent. Heavenly Masterly asked again, Master, are you hesitating? Mo Wuliang shook his head. Not at all. In terms of martial strength, my Liang Dao sect can't even compare to the sword sect, and the sword sect was almost exterminated because of this treasure. How would I dare to be greedy? What I'm worried about is that my Liang Dao sect doesn't want to participate, but someone is forcing us to participate. At this point, he suddenly raised his head. These bastards are here. Just as he finished speaking, a middle-aged man and a black-robed old man appeared in front of him. Mo Wulyong looked at the middle-aged man and smiled. So it's Protector Qin Tian of the Order Alliance. Qin Tian smiled. Sect Head Mo, please don't blame me for disturbing you. Mo Wulyong smiled. Not at all. Come, invite me in. Soon, a group of people entered the hall. In the hall, Qin Tian smiled. Venerable Mo, I won't waste any more time. This time, Sect Head Mo already knows why I'm here, so I hope that Sect Head Mo can help me. Mo Wulyong said solemnly. Protector Qin, this isn't a simple matter. Qin Tian smiled. If Sect Head Mo has any difficulties, please feel free to speak. Mo Wulyong sighed. Protector Qin, you're a straightforward person. The old man won't beat around the bush with you. This divination is equivalent to peeking into the secrets of the heavens, and peeking into the secrets of the heavens comes with a price. If it was an ordinary person, it would naturally be a small matter to the old man. But this Yi Xian isn't an ordinary person. Even the old man can't help but admire his concealment technique. And to find him, you'll need to pay a huge price. Qin Tian smiled. Sect Head Mo, please speak frankly. Mo Wulyong said. Firstly, the old man needs a large amount of god crystals to set up the array, at least 5 million. Secondly, the old man needs someone to help the old man withstand the heavenly tribulation. Any divination of karma and fate might result in a heavenly tribulation. If there is, the old man needs someone to help him withstand it. Thirdly, and most importantly, the old man needs the Order Alliance to send 3 knowing realm experts to protect my Liang Dao sect. Qin Tian went silent. Mo Wulyong asked again. Does Sect Head Qin feel troubled? Qin Tian shook his head. If the Order Alliance can do this, can you help us find his whereabouts? Mo Wulyong nodded. Yes, but there's only one chance. After the old man sets up the array, his vitality will be greatly damaged and he will need to rest for a long time. So if you know where Yi Xian is, you must capture him. Otherwise, you'll have to wait for at least 2 months. Qin Tian thought for a moment. Sect Head Mo only needs to find his whereabouts. We'll handle the rest. With that, he looked at the black-robed old man. Fetch 5 million god crystals for Sect Head Mo. 5 million god crystals. Even though the black-robed old man was very unwilling, he still chose to get it. 5 million divinity gems was not a small number. After the black-robed old man turned and left, Qin Tian looked at Mo Wulyong. Sect Head Mo, rumor has it that you know the secrets of the heavens. Do you think that Yi Xian is alive or dead? Mo Wulyong shook his head. Guardian Qin, don't joke with the old man. Know the secrets of the heavens? Guardian Qin, do you believe in such nonsense? Qin Tian smiled and didn't say anything. Know the secrets of the heavens? Only at his level did he truly understand what the so-called secrets of the heavens were. Who could know the future? At least in his opinion, no one. Could the ancient race powerhouses of the past be any weaker than the people of the present? If they knew the future, how could they have been exterminated? Of course, once one reached a certain level, it was true that they could sense some things in the dark. For example, danger. And the Liang Dao sect's divination was actually using this heaven and earth to find out where Yi Xian was. It wasn't knowing the future. Of course, this method couldn't be underestimated. At this moment, the black-robed old man who left earlier returned. The black-robed old man pointed and a storage ring landed in front of Mo Wulyong. Mo Wulyong glanced at it and kept the storage ring. Please wait outside for a moment. The old man is about to set up an array. When Yi Xian appears, I will inform the two of you. Qin Tian looked straight at Mo Wulyong. There shouldn't be a problem, right? Mo Wulyong said seriously. Of course not. But, let me say this first. If you can't catch him, then don't blame the old man, Qin Tian nodded. Of course. Then the two of us will wait for Sect Head Mo's good news. With that, the two of them turned and left. After the two of them left, Heavenly Masterly suddenly said, Master, didn't you say that you wouldn't get involved? Mo Wulyong said indifferently, if we don't get involved, do you think the Order Alliance will give up? Will they? Heavenly Master Li shook his head. Emma Woolyong said softly, we have no choice but to get involved. But we won't offend that Yi Xian. Heavenly Master Li looked at Emma Woolyong. Master, what do you mean? Emma Woolyong was silent for a moment. Then he pointed his finger and a black jade pendant landed in front of Heavenly Master Li. This is a teleportation stone. It can teleport you 1,000,000 miles in an instant. But you only have 2 chances. Give this to that Yi Xian. Heavenly Master Li said solemnly. If the Order Alliance finds out. Emma Woolyong shook his head. If you don't say it, I don't say it, and Yi Xian doesn't say it, no one will know. Heavenly Master Li was about to speak when Emma Woolyong suddenly said, he won't say it. Heavenly Master Li was puzzled. Why? Emma Woolyong smiled. Because he's not stupid. If he says it, will the Order Alliance kill the old man? They won't. On the contrary, we will completely stand on the Order Alliance's side. By then, he will have nowhere to hide. With that, he looked into the distance. This little swordsman is very smart. Heavenly Master Li nodded. Where is he now? Emma Woolyong said indifferently. In my Liang Dao sect. Heavenly Master Li was stunned. Emma Woolyong said again, he just came in. He's not far behind you. Heavenly Master Li's expression changed. He turned around and saw a youth standing not far from him. It was Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at Emma Woolyong. Senior has good eyesight. Emma Woolyong smiled. Are you here to kill me? Yi Xian shook his head. No, I'm just here to take a look. Really, I don't have any other intentions. Emma Woolyong laughed and said, little friend, the energy on your body should be the chaos energy, right? Yi Xian's heart trembled. This old man isn't just your average level of power. Emma Woolyong said again. Little friend, can you cooperate with the old man and put on a show to help my Liang Dao sect out of danger? Yi Xian looked at Emma Woolyong. Why are you helping me? Emma Woolyong chuckled. Everyone wants to snatch your treasure. The old man wants to do the opposite. Although you don't seem to have any hope of winning, what if you do? If that time really comes, the old man only has one request. I hope that little friend can let the old man take a look at that treasure. The old man has spent his entire life studying the dimensions of the universe. The old man really wants to know what kind of world the 5th dimension is. P.S. To those who didn't get a book, I'm very sorry. I really can't give it to everyone. However, I will hold similar events in the future. I won't be typing this morning. I'll be chatting with everyone, talking about life and the plot. If you have anything you want to say, praise me, scold me, have any suggestions, or have anything you want to say, leave a message. I'll definitely reply. If I leave my QQ, congratulations. You've won the prize. Lastly, I hope that everyone can subscribe to the official website. The society is under a lot of pressure right now. Without a subscription, my wife can't even think about it. The moment I think about it, 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 it's a car. I'm only 18. How could he bear such a huge pressure? Seeking monthly votes. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Chapter 564. The 5th Dimension. Yi Xian finally understood. This old man wanted to understand the 5th dimension through the World Prison Pagoda. That's right, to understand the 5th dimension, there's nothing better than the World Prison Pagoda. At the thought of this, Yi Xian asked, Senior, why don't you look at it now? Emma Woolyong smiled. The old man wants to look at it now, but are you willing to let me look at it for free? Yi Xian smiled, but didn't answer the question. Junior is willing to cooperate with Senior's act. Yi Xian smiled, then looked at Heavenly Master Li. The latter pointed his finger, and the transfer stone landed in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian kept the transfer stone, and just as he was about to leave, Emma Woolyong suddenly said, Later on, the old man will reveal little friend's whereabouts to them. The old man hopes that little friend can activate the transfer stone when they arrive. Little friend, rest assured, this transfer stone is special, unless the Star Lord acts, otherwise, they won't be able to stop you. Yi Xian nodded. Understood. With that, he was about to leave. But at this moment, he seemed to have thought of something, and turned to Emma Woolyong. Senior, may I ask, How did you know my whereabouts so accurately? Emma Woolyong said seriously, little friend, your primal chaos energy is indeed impressive. However, it isn't omnipotent. In this period of time, there are countless people with special abilities. Don't underestimate anyone, especially the Order Alliance and the Tang clan. Yi Xian clasped his fists. Many thanks for the reminder. With that, he turned and left. As for the question just now, he didn't ask again. Since the other party didn't want to say, if he asked again, it would seem like he had no sense of propriety. Yi Xian left without a sound, as if he had never appeared. Heavenly Masterly looked at Emma Woolyong with a serious expression. Master, what is that primordial energy? Emma Woolyong said softly, in the early stages of a universe's birth, there will be 3 types of energy. One is the primordial energy. Heavenly Masterly asked, what about the other 2? Emma Woolyong said, Yin and Yang, 1 Yin and 1 Yang, they have the power to destroy heaven and earth. As he spoke, he looked at Heavenly Masterly. Heavenly Master, you have to remember that you can be ambitious, but ambition is a double-edged sword. If you don't handle it well, you'll die a horrible death. Heavenly Masterly nodded. I will follow Master's teachings. Emma Woolyong nodded. Let them in. Heavenly Masterly retreated. Not long after, Celestial Masterly walked in with the 2 of them. At this moment, a water screen appeared in the middle of the hall. Something seemed to be forming in the water screen. Qin Tian and the black-robed old man stared fixedly at the water screen. In next to no time, a figure appeared within it, and it was Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian was in the City of Order. At this time, the scene suddenly stopped, and the water curtain disappeared. Not far away, Emma Woolyong suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and the ground was covered with it. Not only that, his face was abnormally pale, as if he was about to die. Qin Tian was about to speak, but Emma Woolyong waved his hand. Quickly go and capture him. The old man will be fine after resting for 2 months. Qin Tian nodded. Sect head Mo, take care. With that, he and the black-robed old man disappeared. As soon as the 2 of them disappeared, Heavenly Masterly hurriedly said, Master? Emma Woolyong said softly, life is like a play, and sometimes we have to act. From now on, if anyone comes looking for me, tell them that I'm recuperating. With that, he turned and left. In the City of Order. At the corner of the city, Yi Xian suddenly stood up. The moment he stood up, 2 people appeared in front of him. It was Qin Tian and the black-robed old man. Apart from these 2, there were 7 experts around them. All of them were in the Tao realm. Qin Tian looked at Yi Xian. Surprised? Yi Xian said in a low voice. That's impossible. You can't find me. Qin Tian said indifferently. Yi Xian, I don't want to talk nonsense with you. You have 2 choices now. First, hand over that treasure. Second, fight all of us alone. At this point he smiled. Of course you can also choose to escape. However, we've already reinforced the surrounding space. If you want to use the space to escape, you'll have to break through all of our powers by yourself. Yi Xian was silent. Qin Tian slowly clenched his right hand. Have you thought it through? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. With that, he looked at Qin Tian. I choose the 3rd option. Qin Tian nodded and made an inviting gesture. Please begin your performance. A stone suddenly appeared in Yi Xian's palm. It was the teleportation stone. He circulated his Xian Qi, and in the next moment, he disappeared. The air in the field suddenly froze. Gone? Qin Tian and the others looked at each other. In the next moment, Qin Tian suddenly appeared where Yi Xian was. He pressed his palm down lightly. The space was undamaged. In other words, Yi Xian didn't break through space. Then the question came. How did he escape? Meanwhile, the black-robed old man spoke abruptly. We shouldn't have given him any chance. We should have swarmed him and annihilated him the moment we saw him. All the experts in the surroundings looked at Qin Tian. Even though they didn't say anything, they couldn't help but grumble in their hearts. Let him perform? That was great. That performance wasn't just ordinarily brilliant. Qin Tian's expression was unsightly to the extreme. He'd originally thought that it was absolutely foolproof. Even if Yi Xian grew wings, it would be impossible for him to escape. However, Yi Xian had slapped him in the face. Qin Tian spoke in a low voice. Let's return to the Dao sect. As soon as he finished speaking, he led the group away. In next to no time, Qin Tian led the group to the Dao sect once more. Heavenly Master Li appeared before Qin Tian. Guardian Qin, did you capture Yi Xian? Qin Tian's expression was rather unsightly. Heavenly Master Li's face sank. You let him escape again? Qin Tian nodded. Yes. Brother Li, can you let your master make a move again? Heavenly Master Li smiled bitterly. Brother Qin, you saw my master's state with your own eyes. He's already suffering from a backlash. If he's not careful, his life will be in danger. If he were to make a move again now, he'll definitely die. Furthermore, with his current state, even if he makes a move, he might not be able to find out Yi Xian's whereabouts. Qin Tian said in a low voice. Is it really that serious? Heavenly Master Li pointed to the pool of blood on the ground. Brother Qin, look. This is blood essence. You don't know how powerful that formation is. You should also know that prying into the heavenly secrets will cause you to be targeted by the Tendo. Sigh, it's not easy in our line of work. Qin Tian's face twitched as he looked at Heavenly Master Li. Heavenly Master Li said again, Brother Qin, it's not that Master doesn't want to help, but he's really powerless right now. Qin Tian said in a low voice, When will sect leader Mo recover? Heavenly Master Li thought for a moment before saying, 2 months. Qin Tian nodded. We'll look for sect leader Mo in 2 months. With that, he turned around and left with everyone. Heavenly Master Li instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Qin Tian and the others leave. If the Order Alliance were to go head-on, then the Liang Dao sect would definitely be no match for them. However, 2 months from now, Heavenly Master Li frowned deeply when he thought up to this point. After Qin Tian and the others left the Liang Dao sect, the black-robed old man suddenly said, Guardian Qin, I think there's something wrong with Heavenly Master Li. Qin Tian said indifferently, Are you trying to say that they don't want to help us? The black-robed old man nodded. I have that feeling. Qin Tian said softly, What's the reason? What reason do they have to help Yi Xian? The black-robed old man fell silent. Qin Tian said in a low voice, Our Order Alliance is in need of manpower now. We need to do our best to rope in the Liang Dao sect and not offend them so that they can side with the Tang clan. The black-robed old man nodded. Understood. Tendo Qin said, We'll come again in 2 months. When that time comes, he shouldn't have any more excuses. Tell our people not to go out and look for that person. I'm going back. Also, keep an eye on the Tang clan at all times. That treasure can be in Yi Xian's hands, but it can't be in the Tang clan's hands. After saying that, he quickly disappeared not too far away. The black-robed old man and the others also disappeared. Hundreds of thousands of miles to the right of the Order City, there was a small mountain with a pool on it. As the small mountain was a volcano, the temperature of the pool was very high, just like boiling water. There was an invisible light screen around the pool that enveloped the entire pool. Strange energy flickered around the light screen. Clearly, it was an array formation. In the middle of the pool sat a woman with her legs crossed. The woman's long hair was like a waterfall, her eyebrows were like swords, and there was a small mole at the corner of her mouth. She was very beautiful. The water in the pool was already boiling, but the woman's body was completely fine. Beneath the ground, some mysterious energy was gathering towards the woman. The woman's body was frantically absorbing the energy. Gradually, her body began to tremble and her brows furrowed. Obviously, it was a critical moment. At this moment, a figure suddenly landed in front of the woman. Splash! Water splashed everywhere. The woman suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. She opened her eyes and saw a man standing in front of her. The man was about 20 years old, wearing a blue and white robe, and there was a sheathed sword hanging on his waist. The man was naturally Yi Xian. After he activated the teleportation stone just now, he felt dizzy. That feeling was very uncomfortable. He wanted to vomit. At this moment, Yi Xian looked in front of him. When he saw the woman in front of him, he was instantly stunned. So beautiful! That was Yi Xian's first impression. Of course, that was not the point. The point was that the woman was naked. At this moment, Yi Xian could not help but sigh. She was really beautiful. However, after taking a look, he closed his eyes tightly. One should not be a pervert. He, Yi Xian, would not take advantage of others' difficulties. Of course, the problem he had to consider now was how to resolve this misunderstanding. Yi Xian said very seriously, "Miss, if I say that this is a misunderstanding, would you believe me?" The woman looked at Yi Xian, did not speak, nor did she move. There was a flow of energy flowing in her body. Yi Xian said again, "Miss, you should quickly put on your clothes." "Don't worry, I've already closed my eyes. I can't see anything. Really, I can't see anything." Chapter 565. The woman still did not speak. She just looked at Yi Xian calmly. She did not feel embarrassed or angry that a man had seen her naked. Yi Xian saw that the atmosphere was not right. He cupped his fists and said, "Miss, this was indeed an accident. I did not see anything. We will meet again." With that, he turned around and left. The moment he turned around, the woman behind him suddenly threw a punch at his back. Fast, like a ferocious tiger pouncing on its prey. Sensing the woman's sudden attack, Yi Xian turned around and blocked with his arms. Bang! Yi Xian was instantly thrown dozens of feet away. After stopping, Yi Xian's expression became extremely serious. Because at that moment, his arms had cracked. Not only that, his internal organs felt very uncomfortable, as if they had been torn apart. What a strong force! Yi Xian raised his head and looked not far away. At that moment, the woman had already put on her clothes. The woman was wearing a tight white dress with a purple ribbon tied around her waist, which made her figure appear even more graceful and fiery. The woman's beauty was not the same as other women's. Her eyebrows were like swords, her body was straight, and there was a sense of heroism in her beauty. The woman slowly walked towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian forcefully suppressed the discomfort in his heart and said in a low voice, "Miss, this is a misunderstanding." The woman did not speak. She slowly clenched her right hand. As she clenched her fist, Yi Xian suddenly felt an invisible pressure. So strong. Yi Xian's expression became more and more serious. This woman actually gave him a feeling that he was invincible. This was aura. The pressure that came from her aura. Just as Yi Xian was about to draw his sword, Tang Qing's voice suddenly sounded, "Ask her if her name is Zhao Mu." Yi Xian hesitated, then looked at the woman. "Are you Zhao Mu?" The woman stopped and frowned slightly. She still did not speak, but there was a trace of doubt in her eyes. Tang Qing said softly, "It should be him. I advise you to run away quickly." Yi Xian did not understand. "Why?" Tang Qing said, "Have you heard of the law rank?" Yi Xian shook his head. Tang Qing said, "The so-called law rankings are the most valuable rankings in the entire Chaosverse. Of course, that's aside from the unknown divine kingdom. There were 10 people on the law rank, and it was updated every year. In order to be on the list, there were 2 requirements. The first was that one had to be a Dao realm expert, and the second was that one had to be below the age of 25. The person before you is Zhao Mu, ranked 3rd on the law rank. Thirdly, do you know what that means?" Yes, she at least knew about the realm of dreams now. She is also the type that can challenge those of a higher level. Yi Xian said solemnly, "Can't I beat him?" Tang Qing said calmly, "No, you're so powerful, how could you lose? However, Uncle Yi, do you think it's meaningful to fight with her? Moreover, the power behind this person isn't weak either. Do you really want to become enemies with the entire world?" Yi Xian smiled sheepishly. "That's true. There's no point in fighting him." After saying that, he turned and ran. Seeing Yi Xian run, Zhao Mu frowned. The next moment, she tapped the ground with her toes and disappeared into the distance like an arrow. At the end of the horizon, Yi Xian frowned when he sensed Zhao Mu chasing after him. "This woman isn't going to let me go." Tang Qing said calmly, "Who told you to look at her body?" Yi Xian said, "I didn't do it on purpose." Tang Qing said, "I'll cut off your head and say it wasn't on purpose. Is that okay?" Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, Zhao Mu suddenly sped up. Yi Xian didn't stop and continued to run. He didn't mind fighting with this woman, but he was afraid that this would attract the attention of the Orderly Order Alliance and the Tang clan. If that happened, it wouldn't be a one-on-one fight, but a group fight. It didn't take long for Yi Xian to arrive above an ocean, but Zhao Mu still hadn't left. Right at this moment, Zhao Mu suddenly stopped. She gazed at the ray of light in the sky, and then she slowly closed her eyes. After a moment of silence, she took a step forward. Hiss! Something seemed to have been torn apart here. In the next moment, a figure descended in front of Yi Xian. It was Zhao Mu. Yi Xian's expression changed when he witnessed this scene. What sort of speed is that? Zhao Mu gazed at Yi Xian, and then she didn't waste her breath and just smashed her fist forward. Hiss! This punch caused the space in front of Yi Xian to be instantly torn apart. Yi Xian didn't dare act carelessly when he saw this, and he immediately drew his sword and slashed. Bang! The ray of light instantly collapsed, and then Yi Xian was blasted 300 m back. When he stopped moving, the space around him had split apart completely. Yi Xian's expression gradually turned solemn when he witnessed this scene. This woman's strength was not just an ordinary level of strength. Meanwhile, Zhao Mu suddenly raised her right hand towards the sky. In an instant, dark clouds covered the sky while countless bolts of lightning converged. In the next moment, she suddenly clenched her right hand. Swish! A bolt of lightning suddenly shot down from the sky and descended onto her fist. A bolt of lightning traversed the heavens and the earth. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched when he witnessed this scene. What technique is that? It seems quite formidable. At this moment, Zhao Mu suddenly took a step forward. As soon as he did so, a bolt of lightning instantly appeared in front of Yi Xian. It was impossible to dodge. This time, Yi Xian didn't dare act carelessly. He tightened his grip on the sword in his right hand, and a strand of mysterious energy suddenly converged into his sword. Dragon energy! Yi Xian held the sword in his right hand and swung it down. Hiss! A ray of golden sword energy slashed down in a straight line. Rumble! The space in the surroundings suddenly shook violently, and then Yi Xian retreated repeatedly. Zhao Mu was just about to follow up with another attack when two flying swords suddenly slashed towards her. Her brows knit together slightly, and she raised her arms horizontally. Bang! The sword struck her arms, but she only moved around 3 m back. Moreover, her clothes weren't even torn apart. Yi Xian's expression turned slightly unsightly when he witnessed this scene. Is she really that monstrous? At this moment, his entire body felt limp and numb. If his sword hadn't blocked most of the energy of the lightning, then he might have been reduced to a dried corpse by now. Tang Qing spoke abruptly. Do you think that you're the only monstrous genius in the younger generation? Yi Xian was about to speak when Zhao Mu suddenly vanished. Yi Xian frowned slightly, and then his figure flashed to the side. A bolt of lightning brushed past his chest, and then he drew his sword and swung it horizontally. This slash struck Zhao Mu's stomach. However, it wasn't able to break through Zhao Mu's body. It was like it had struck a piece of divine metal at the Dao realm. Yi Xian was about to withdraw his sword as soon as it failed to break through Zhao Mu's defenses. However, Zhao Mu suddenly raised her knee and struck him. Yi Xian hurriedly raised his sword horizontally to block it. Bang! Yi Xian retreated 1,000 feet in an instant. Moreover, his expression had turned extremely unsightly when he stopped. Because the Creation Realm sword in his hand had actually bent. Bent! That was a sword at the Creation Realm. Zhao Mu was about to attack again when Yi Xian suddenly said, "Stop for a moment." However, Zhao Mu didn't stop. She arrived in front of Yi Xian again and launched a side kick at Yi Xian's head. The space around Yi Xian collapsed as soon as he threw the kick. Yi Xian was shocked. He didn't take the kick head-on, and he flashed backwards 300 m instead. However, he hadn't even stopped when an afterimage suddenly charged towards him. Everywhere the afterimage passed, the space collapsed inch by inch. Yi Xian frowned. This time, he didn't retreat. He suddenly and mysteriously disappeared. In the next moment, countless flying swords instantly engulfed Zhao Mu. There was a moment of silence. Bang! Those flying swords suddenly collapsed, but in the next moment, another flying sword slashed towards him. Zhao Mu blocked with her arm. Bang! She instantly retreated over 30 m, but before she could stop, another flying sword slashed towards her. Just like that, Zhao Mu instantly retreated over 600 m. Flying swords crisscrossed all around her, one after another, not giving Zhao Mu any chance to catch her breath. However, these flying swords weren't able to do anything to Zhao Mu. Her physical body was too strong. At this moment, Zhao Mu's right palm suddenly pressed downwards. In the next moment, she suddenly lifted it up. Bang! A powerful force suddenly exploded from her palm. In an instant, the space around her exploded, and Yi Xian's flying swords vanished without a trace. A few breaths of time later, the space around them returned to normal. At this moment, they were 300 m apart. Zhao Mu gazed at Yi Xian, clenched her right hand, and was about to attack. However, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Wait." As he spoke with a serious expression. "Miss, do you know who I am?" Zhao Mu gazed at Yi Xian in silence. Yi Xian said, "Let me tell you, I'm from the Order Alliance. Have you heard of the Order Alliance?" "You." His voice stopped abruptly. Because Zhao Mu had suddenly charged towards him, but countless flying swords blocked her path in the next moment. Zhao Mu smashed her fist forward. A few breaths of time later, all the flying swords had vanished. However, at the moment, Yi Xian was gone. Zhao Mu's beautiful brows knit together slightly when she witnessed this scene. She glanced at the surroundings, and her divine sense spread out like a net. However, she still didn't notice anything. After a moment of silence, she suddenly slapped her palm forward. Rumble! Where her palm landed, the space began to collapse inch by inch. In the blink of an eye, the space within a radius of 1000 m had collapsed. When the space was restored by the laws of heaven and earth, Zhao Mu was already gone. Zhao Mu arrived at the Order City. She glanced at the 3 words Order City on the city gate, and in the next moment, she punched through the air. Boom! The entire city wall in front of her was directly smashed by her punch. Countless people in the Order City were shocked. Zhao Mu walked into the city, and finally, she arrived at the city lord's mansion. Lu Shibai walked out, and when he saw Zhao Mu, he frowned slightly. "Your Excellency." Before she could finish her sentence, Zhao Mu, who was in front of her, suddenly punched out. In an instant, countless lightning bolts bombarded the city lord's mansion like a storm. Lu Shibai's expression changed greatly, and his figure trembled as he retreated. Rumble! In an instant, the entire city lord's mansion turned into ashes. Not far away, Lu Shibai's expression changed greatly, and he looked at Zhao Mu in horror. What terrifying strength! Meanwhile, a black-robed old man suddenly appeared in front of Zhao Mu. The black-robed old man stared fixedly at Zhao Mu. "Your Excellency, who are you? How dare you cause trouble in the Order Alliance's territory? Are you tired of living?" Zhao Mu looked at the black-robed old man, and in the next moment, she suddenly vanished. Hiss! Inch by inch, the space here collapsed. P.S. Do you have tickets? I've been thinking a lot lately, and I feel that I should ask for monthly tickets. Only by asking for monthly tickets will I have motivation. A huge motivation. Of course, I don't care about monthly tickets. Monthly tickets and rewards are nothing to me. What I care about is motivation. Yes, motivation. Conclusion. I want tickets for motivation. Asking for tickets. Asking for tickets. Chapter 566. The black-robed old man's expression instantly changed when he saw Zhao Mu attack. Who's that woman? That thought had just appeared in the black-robed old man's mind when Zhao Mu appeared in front of him, and then a powerful force blasted towards him. The black-robed old man's expression was icy cold. He didn't shrink back, and he smashed his fist towards Zhao Mu as well. He was very confident in this punch. After all, he was a knowledge realm expert. How could he possibly lose to such a young woman? However, he regretted it when Zhao Mu's fist collided with his fist. Crack! The sound of bones breaking resounded abruptly, and then the black-robed old man was pushed over 100 m back. As soon as he stopped, the ground beneath his feet was instantly blasted into powder. The expressions of the experts of the Order Alliance in the surroundings instantly became extremely solemn when they witnessed this scene. On the other hand, the black-robed old man's expression had become solemn as well. His entire right arm had been blasted into pieces, and even his internal organs had cracked apart. The might of a single punch was so terrifying. He'd actually lost completely in that collision just now. The black-robed old man gazed at Zhao Mu. "Who exactly are you?" Meanwhile, Lu Shibai spoke abruptly. "She's Zhao Mu." "Zhao Mu." The black-robed old man's pupils constricted slightly. Zhao Mu, the disciple of the Southern Sect's martial master. The Southern Sect's martial master. He was an extremely terrifying person, and even the Order Alliance had to treat him with caution. Because he was ranked second on the Dao rankings 100 years ago, and he'd even become an extraordinary martial saint at that time. He was the youngest extraordinary martial saint in the last 10,000 years besides the founding ancestor of the Wu Yuan, Zhou Yafu. Now, he could be said to be unfathomable. There were 6 exalts in the world right now, and the Star Lord was one of them. The Southern Sect's martial master was another one. Even the Order Alliance didn't dare to rashly offend such a figure. The black-robed old man spoke in a low voice. "Miss Mu, I presume there's a reason you attacked my Order Alliance, right?" Zhao Mu pressed her fingers together and drew lightly on the ground, and it didn't take long for 2 words to appear on the ground. "Swordsman." The black-robed old man frowned slightly. "Swordsman? What do you mean, Miss Mu?" Zhao Mu pressed her fingers together again, and 2 words appeared on the ground. "Come out." "The swordsman is out?" The black-robed old man glanced at Lu Shibai, who was not far away. The latter said in a deep voice, "Miss Mu, are you saying that a swordsman from my Order Alliance has offended you?" Zhao Mu nodded and waved her finger. Another line of words appeared on the ground. "Let him out." Lu Shibai looked at the black-robed old man. The black-robed old man spoke in a deep voice. "Although our Order Alliance has swordsmen, he hasn't appeared here. Moreover, those 2 old fellows are in closed-door cultivation." At this time, Zhao Mu pointed with his fingers again, and another word appeared on the ground. "Young." "A young swordsman?" The black-robed old man was stunned. In the next moment, he seemed to have thought of something, and he hurriedly waved his right hand, causing an illusory portrait to appear before him. The person in the portrait was Yi Xian. The black-robed elder asked, "Miss Mu, is it this person?" Zhao Mu nodded. The black-robed old man spoke in a low voice. "Miss Mu, he isn't a member of my Order Alliance." Zhao Mu's brows furrowed slightly, and his expression was unfriendly. The black-robed old man hurriedly said, "Miss Mu, the old man didn't lie to you. This Yi Xian really isn't a member of our Order Alliance, and we've been looking for him everywhere." At this point, he seemed to have thought of something and looked at Zhao Mu. "He told you that he's a member of our Order Alliance?" Zhao Mu nodded. Hearing this, the black-robed old man's face instantly turned ugly. "This is framing." Ah! At this time, Zhao Mu turned around and left. The black-robed old man hurriedly asked, "Miss Mu, did he offend you?" Zhao Mu didn't answer, and continued walking forward. The black-robed old man suddenly appeared in front of Zhao Mu. "Miss Mu, our Order Alliance is also looking for him. Why don't we join forces?" If they could pull Zhao Mu in, it would undoubtedly be a great thing for the Order Alliance. Zhao Mu glanced at the black-robed old man, and didn't speak. She continued walking forward. The black-robed old man appeared in front of Zhao Mu again, and at this time, Zhao Mu suddenly punched out. The black-robed old man's face changed greatly, and he used his left hand to block. Bang! The black-robed old man instantly retreated 100 zhong. At this moment, his entire left arm also cracked, and at the same time, a word appeared on the ground in front of him. "Annoying." The black-robed old man. After Zhao Mu left, the black-robed old man's face was extremely cold. "This damned Yi Xian." As he spoke, he looked at his right arm, and there was nothing there. Seeing this, the black-robed old man's face gradually became somewhat malevolent. Not far away, Lu Shibai glanced at the black-robed old man, and no one knew what he was thinking. On a certain island, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground, and at this moment, he was madly devouring god crystals. One had to admit that Zhao Mu's strength was very strong, and in the previous battle, he had consumed too much energy. At this time, Tang Qing appeared in front of Yi Xian, and she glanced at Yi Xian. "I discovered a secret." Yi Xian was a little curious. "What secret?" Tang Qing said indifferently. "Your strength." Yi Xian frowned. "I don't really understand." Tang Qing shook her head. "Feng Xiyuan seems to be at a disadvantage. But in fact, that is not the case, because you have not used your real killer move. And those trump cards of yours basically, once you use them people will die, such as that sword of yours. As far as I know, that sword of yours is aimed at the soul. When Feng Xiuan and that woman fought, if you use this sword, although her body is strong, her soul may not be strong. Once she forcibly withstood your sword, you are confident that you can kill her, right? Yi Xian nodded. If she doesn't have a trump card, this sword will definitely kill her. However, if I have a trump card, how can others not have a trump card? Don't you think so? Tang Qing laughed. You have tender feelings for the fairer sex. Yi Xian shook his head. First of all, I don't have any deep grudge against her. Strictly speaking, I was in the wrong first. Second, I don't have the confidence to kill her. What good will it do me if I continue to fight with her and both of us get hurt? No, not at all. Third, if this person can reach this level, the force behind him must not be weak. If I kill her, it will undoubtedly bring disaster to myself. What do you think? Tang Qing said indifferently. He will not let you go. Yi Xian laughed. Miss Tang, let's change the topic. For example, I want to know, will the Tang clan come to save you? Tang Qing was expressionless. What do you think? Yi Xian laughed. It depends on Miss Tang's importance. Tang Qing sat on the side. If you want to use me to threaten the Tang clan, then you are gravely mistaken. Yi Xian asked. Why? Tang Qing said indifferently. The family's interests come first. Yi Xian frowned slightly. They will sacrifice you? Tang Qing laughed. What do you think? Yi Xian suddenly laughed. Don't be so decisive. Let us wait and see whether Miss Tang is important to the family or not. Tang Qing glanced at Yi Xian, but did not speak. Yi Xian also did not speak again, continuing to devour the divine crystals. Just like this, about 2 hours later, Yi Xian had more or less recovered. He got up and looked at Tang Qing not far away. Just as he was about to speak, the space above their heads suddenly split open. A giant hand slammed down from the split space. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly, and he pointed with his fingers. Bas! A sword light soared into the sky, directly slashing at the giant hand. Chi! The entire boulder was directly split in two, and at this time, a figure swooped down from the sky. Yi Xian frowned slightly, and he lightly slashed with his fingers. Chi! A sword light slashed diagonally over his head. Boom! A loud noise rang out, and the figure retreated dozens of feet to the left. It was a young man about 20 years old. The young man stared fixedly at Yi Xian, and he was about to speak, but at this time, a flying sword suddenly appeared in front of him. The young man's face changed, and he dodged to the side, directly dodging the flying sword, but in the next moment, a sword silently appeared behind him. Sensing this flying sword, the young man was shocked, and he forcefully dodged to the side, but it was still a little too late, and the sword directly cut off his right arm. On the right, the young man had just stopped when a sword suddenly appeared in front of him. The young man's pupils suddenly shrank, and at this moment, he knew that he was finished. But just when the sword was half an inch away from his eyebrows, it suddenly stopped. It was unknown when an old man had appeared beside the young man, and his hand was holding onto the flying sword. Yi Xian looked at the old man, and the old man wore a luxurious robe, and his aura was restrained, and he could not see the depth of his aura. The old man glanced coldly at the young man. You overestimate yourself. Now you know the gap between you and others? The young man's face was a little ugly, but he did not dare to reply. The old man turned to look at Yi Xian not far away. As expected of the person who gave the Order Alliance and the sword sect a headache, you're really not ordinary. Yi Xian looked at Tang Qing. Is he from your Tang clan? Tang Qing shook his head. Yi Xian asked again, from the Order Alliance? Tang Qing shook his head again. Yi Xian still wanted to ask, but Tang Qing suddenly said, Qin clan. Qin clan? Yi Xian was stunned, and then he was a little startled. From what I remember, I have never offended any Qin clan. Tang Qing said indifferently, Qin clan has an engagement with my Tang clan. Yi Xian was slightly stunned and soon, he turned to look at the two old men not far away. Are you here to save her? The old man said indifferently, Yi Xian, this old man does not want to talk nonsense with you, we want this woman. Yi Xian frowned slightly. You're not here to save her. As he spoke, he looked at Tang Qing, and the latter said indifferently, "I've been captured by you, how can the world think that I'm innocent?" Hearing this, Yi Xian understood. This Qin clan is not here to save, but to kill. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Your Tang clan allows them to kill you?" Tang Qing smiled. "Since they're here, it proves that I've been abandoned. Do you understand?" Yi Xian went silent for a moment, and then looked at the old man. "Sir, actually, Miss Tang and I are innocent. Really, we've never touched each other's hands." Yi Xian. At this time, the young man not far away suddenly roared, "You're courting death." Yi Xian ignored the young man, and looked at Tang Qing instead. "They don't believe me, I'm finished. My innocence has been ruined by you." Tang Qing's eyelids twitched, and just as she was about to speak, the young man not far away suddenly glared at her. "Slut, why don't you go die? You're ruining my Qin clan's reputation, ruining my own. Your mother is the lowest servant of the Tang clan. You're also lowly." Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian, and her eyes were like silk. "You were really amazing last night, my bones turned soft. I want more tonight." Yi Xian. Chapter 567. Hearing Tang Qing's words, the young man's face turned livid. He was about to speak when the old man said coldly, "What a disgrace." The young man looked at the old man. "Second uncle." The old man looked at the young man coldly. Anger is the expression of a coward. The young man did not dare to talk back and could only glare at Tang Qing not far away. The old man looked at Tang Qing. "Miss Tang Qing, this old man hopes you can understand." Tang Qing smiled. "You want to kill me, do you need me to understand?" The old man said indifferently, "If you want to blame someone, blame yourself. You originally had a respected position in the Tang clan and even had a marriage alliance with my Qin clan, but you were captured by this Yi Xian. Forgive this old man for being blunt. For the reputation of my Qin clan and your Tang clan, you should choose to commit suicide." Tang Qing smiled. Next to them, Yi Xian was silent. Tang Qing suddenly smiled. "Reputation? Haha." There was a trace of sadness in his laughter. The old man's face was cold. "Your Tang clan's elders have spoken. If you die, they will definitely kill Yi Xian to avenge you. Not only that, you are also the eldest miss of the Tang clan. You can have a grand funeral and even enter the Tang clan's Hall of Heroes." Tang Qing shook his head and smiled. "What if I don't commit suicide?" The old man looked at Tang Qing. "Then you are a traitor of the Tang clan." Tang Qing was silent. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly asked, "How did you find me?" The old man looked at Yi Xian coldly. "Do you really think your concealment technique is invincible?" Yi Xian said with a smile, "You found me, but you didn't bring any strong tangs with you. Something is wrong with you." The old man narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" Yi Xian looked around and laughed. "No, I don't mean anything." The old man ignored Yi Xian and looked at Tang Qing. "Have you made your choice?" Tang Qing said softly, "My sister," the old man said. "Don't worry, the Tang clan will not implicate anyone." Tang Qing nodded. Understood. As soon as she finished speaking, she raised her head and looked at the sky. There, the sun was setting. Tang Qing smiled slightly. "All these years, I've never found the sunset to be so beautiful." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly slapped her forehead with her right hand. Just as she was about to slap herself on the forehead, a sword suddenly blocked her hand. The one who attacked was Yi Xian. Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "Miss Tang Qing, you're really stupid." Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian and did not say anything. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Reputation? Family honor? Let me ask you, if the Qin family wants you dead so badly, why do you still care about their reputation? And the Tang clan wants to sacrifice you for a so-called reputation. Is it worth it for you to die for such a clan?" Tang Qing smiled and said, "Young Master Yi, what do you think I should do?" Yi Xian smiled embarrassedly. "I've never thought about that." Tang Qing smiled lightly. As he said, "This is already the best ending for me. At least, I can still leave a good reputation, right?" Yi Xian shook his head. "You're wrong." Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said seriously, "Reputation and what not, it's all fleeting. In my opinion, how others treat me, I will treat others the same way. The Qin family wants you dead for their so-called reputation, and your Tang clan wants you dead for their so-called reputation and honor. This is bullshit. In their hearts, you're not even comparable to reputation and honor. And you want to fulfill their so-called reputation and honor. Ask yourself, do you think it's worth it? Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian. If one day, Wu Yuan treats your sister like this? Yi Xian said calmly, I will definitely kill everyone in Wu Yuan. Tang Qing looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian said again, my sister can fight for Wu Yuan, even die in battle, because she is a student of Wu Yuan. If Wu Yuan is in trouble, she can't run, let alone betray Wu Yuan. This is her responsibility. But if Wu Yuan uses this method to kill her, I won't agree. Tang Qing shook his head. Your sister has a brother who can do anything for her, but I don't. Yi Xian said, then you need to control your fate in your own hands. Tang Qing was about to speak, but at this moment, the young man not far away suddenly said fiercely, are you done? If. Yi Xian suddenly turned around, and the next moment, a flying sword suddenly slashed at the young man. The old man's expression changed, and he flicked his sleeves. Boom! The flying sword was directly blocked. The old man looked at Yi Xian and was about to speak, but suddenly, a voice came from the side. Be careful. This is an illusion. As soon as the voice fell, the old man suddenly turned around, and the head of the young man beside him flew out. Blood spurted out like a fountain. Seeing this scene, the old man was stunned, and of course, he was more afraid. As for the young man, his eyes were wide open, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. He didn't expect to die like this. Yi Xian looked at the young man coldly. Don't interrupt when I speak. After saying that, he looked at the old man not far away. The old man's expression changed, and he retreated hundreds of feet, distancing himself from Yi Xian. At this moment, 6 old men appeared around Yi Xian. The weakest was at the Genesis Tao realm. 3 of them were even at the knowledge realm. Yi Xian looked at Tang Qing. Are there any experts from the Tang clan? Tang Qing glanced at the 6 of them and shook his head. No. Yi Xian roared with laughter. You found my whereabouts, but you didn't notify the Tang clan. Looks like you want to take that treasure for yourself. The old man's eyes narrowed. We don't want to take that treasure for ourselves. We just want to obtain it first, and then give it to the Tang clan. Yi Xian shook his head. Do you believe what you just said? A wisp of killing intent flashed through the old man's eyes. Attack! As soon as he finished speaking, the 6 experts around him were about to attack. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, Wait! The old man frowned slightly. Yi Xian spoke seriously, I'm willing to hand over that treasure. The old man was stunned. You are willing to hand over that treasure? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. The old man stared fixedly at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Yi Xian said, I'm serious. The old man laughed savagely. Do you think this old man is an idiot? As he spoke, he gazed at the experts of the Qin clan. Attack together. Don't give him any chance. As he spoke, the 7 of them charged at Yi Xian. The old man was very clearly aware that Yi Xian was definitely playing tricks. The best way was to kill Yi Xian. That way, no matter what tricks Yi Xian was playing, it would be useless. Yi Xian's expression changed when he saw the 7 of them charge at him. He hadn't expected the old man to be so decisive. 1 against 7? Of course he couldn't defeat them. Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at Tang Qing. Quickly notify the experts of the Tang clan. Tell them that the Qin clan has betrayed us. As he spoke, he tapped with his finger, and a transmission talisman descended before Tang Qing. Tang Qing glanced at Yi Xian, and then she pinched the voice transmission talisman lightly, causing it to vanish instantly. After that, she looked at the experts of the Qin clan and said, They'll be here soon. The experts of the Qin clan stopped moving. The old man who led the group had an extremely unsightly expression on his face. He stared fixedly at Yi Xian and laughed fiercely. Do you think you can turn the situation around just like that? Kill. Quickly kill him. As soon as he finished speaking, the 7 of them attacked in unison. Yi Xian suddenly placed Tang Qing within the pagoda, and then he took his sword with both hands and swung it forward. At this moment, he'd immediately utilized Dragon Soul, dragon energy, and Emoku energy. His sword had only just swung down. Bang! Yi Xian's figure was instantly blasted flying. This flight covered a distance of several thousand feet. As soon as Yang Yi stopped moving, the experts in front of him were about to attack again. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly pointed the soul-suppressing sword forward. Split! As soon as he spoke, the soul-suppressing sword trembled violently, and then a mysterious force flashed. In the next moment, one of the experts of the Qin clan who was charging at the front had suddenly stopped while terror filled his eyes. The others had stopped as well, and they gazed at that expert. Meanwhile, that expert's eyes had lost all color. His soul was gone. All the experts of the Qin clan exchanged glances when they witnessed this scene, and there was a wisp of shock and fear in their eyes. His soul was gone with just a single attack? All of them gazed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian's face was slightly pale, but he stood ramrod straight like a sharp sword that was about to be unsheathed. Meanwhile, the old man who led the group from the Qin clan spoke abruptly. He suffered backlash. Quickly kill him. Quickly. Suddenly, Yi Xian pointed his sword at a Dao Genesis realm expert who wasn't too far away from him. Split him up. As soon as he finished speaking, the expression of that expert who was pointed at by Yi Xian's sword instantly changed drastically, and he retreated like a madman. However, he'd only taken a few steps back when he felt like something within him was slowly vanishing. His soul. He spoke with terror. Save. He hadn't even finished speaking when his figure suddenly froze on the spot, and then his eyes lost focus at a visible speed. The expressions of the others here instantly changed when they witnessed this scene. He instantly killed another Dao realm expert? All of them gazed at Yi Xian, and there was dense fear in their eyes this time. Even the eyes of the old man who led the group were filled with fear, and he glanced at the sword in Yi Xian's hand. There's something strange about that sword. It was strange. All of them gazed at the sword in Yi Xian's hand. The soul-suppressing sword. Yi Xian grinned. There's nothing strange about it. It's true. I've suffered backlash, and I can't even launch a single attack. Quickly attack me. The corners of the old man's eyes twitched when he heard Yi Xian, and he stared fixedly at Yi Xian. A short while passed before he suddenly gazed at the experts of the Qin clan. He's definitely suffering backlash. Let's join forces together and kill him. As soon as he finished speaking, he intended to charge forward. However, it didn't take long for him to notice that besides himself, no one else had moved. The old man was stunned for a moment, and then he said furiously, "He's exhausted. Now is the best time to kill him." All of them glanced at each other. Right when they were hesitating, Yi Xian suddenly cried out. Everyone looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian wiped off the cold sweat on his face and said, I've suffered backlash. I don't have any strength left. You guys quickly come and hit me. I'm really not lying to all of you. I'm begging all of you. Hit me. My skin is really itching." Everyone was speechless. P.S. There was an earthquake last night, and there were obvious aftershocks in Guiyang as well. I sincerely hope that everyone will be safe. I also hope that there will be no more disasters in the world. Humans are really weak in the face of natural disasters. Most of the time when we look up at the starry sky and think about it seriously, we humans are really insignificant. I don't know much about the universe. I only know that it's huge, extremely huge, extremely huge. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about something more realistic. Please subscribe. I hope that the readers of Zongheng will support me by subscribing. In my heart, I still want to make money. Sweat. Will they think that I'm too vulgar? You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.